Still waiting.
Loading.
I swear this happens. Oh! Hey everyone, welcome to number 70 of From the Ground Up. A few things before we get started. You can check out some t-shirts on Theportcitypythons.com. That helps host the podcast and keep the podcast going. We also have Amazon links that you can see beneath our videos as well as in the description of the podcast. And then you can also hear Owen's sound coming back at me and giving me some feedback, I believe. Is that you?
I don't know if it is, but I've got my headset and my mic and everything plugged in. So
I don't know. I'm just going to keep on talking. Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm just going to keep on talking. It sounds good now.
Okay.
All right. So
fight through it.
So we were saying at how there wasn't going to be any technical difficulties, but
no, if we can get through an NPR episode without like my computer exploding, I call it a good episode, and we just roll. So I know Eric doesn't like that. So
it's been like 30 seconds, so it's off to a good start. I don't know what the fuck I was talking about. There's probably a Carpet Fest coming up. Owen wins Carpet Fest. We usually do ads for Carpet Fest, but it's more awkward when I'm looking.
There's like 4 of them. I mean, well, I'm sorry. I was just listening. Again, this video thing is so new to me. But yeah, there's a Carpet Fest coming up on Saturday. It is the Northeast Carpet Fest. It is the 7th annual Northeast Carpet Fest. So we're going to keep trying to do those until one of us is dead. Probably be me first, exposed to Eric's going to live forever, but it's our time. It's our turn, this one, and then I think there's one more after us, and I think we're done for the year and we're going to start over again. So I think, God, I don't remember which one is still left after us. See, I'm bad at this too. I need, like, he needs here. Eric needs to be here, otherwise I don't know what I'm talking about. So
Alyssa needs to be here, or I don't know.
I don't know. See, this is not good.
What are we doing?
We have the 2 secondary people here, and now we're just kind of talking. But
now she's yelling at me.
It's 2 minutes in, and you're saying, "What are we?"
And it's already gone haywire. It's already gone. You should have known.
We were trying to like do the pre-ads thing. We were getting a little feedback, and it's a whole thing, you know. I don't know. I'm trying to actually do the show though. All right, so today we have on Owen McIntyre, if you didn't notice, of Morelia Python Radio as well as Rogue Reptiles. He works with a plethora of different snake species, obviously really deep into the Morelia and stuff like that. So, Owen, when you were growing up, did you want to be a Morelia Python Radio co-host, or?
It was always my dream. I followed Eric around for eon. No, I actually had... unlike, and I know because this is like the first question we ask everybody on NPR, and my story is so much different than theirs because my first interaction with a reptile was actually a water turtle. I was one of those kids that your parents got you like a red-eared slider that you never should do because it's still alive, and they got it from me when I was like 5, and I'm like 32 now, and it's like the thing is still around. So never do that. They last forever. And actually, I was terrified of snakes for most of my life. It was my dad let us watch like Indiana Jones and a bunch of other shit and just warped my tiny little mind that snakes were something to totally avoid. And walking down a creek with my cousin, eastern water snake like shot by me. And I just fell down this embankment and got like cut up all bad. And I'm like, oh, a snake clearly was out to get me. And that stuck with me till probably about college. So no, I did not want to do anything with snakes as a child. I wanted them very far away from me. And I was, when they, at the zoo, when they bust out the python, there's always that one kid that just runs. I was that guy. So yeah, it was a kind of nice little 180 I did in college.
So what was your first exposure and what changed your mind in college?
My first exposure was my roommate freshman year was Chris Foley. And he is doing a bunch of stuff with scrubs and other things like that now. At the time, he was doing colubrids and carpet pythons. So the first interaction was there was a big reptile show that Saturday. And he brought a leucistic Texas rat snake to the dorm because he was going to go up to Hamburg and sell it. You guys will know of Hamburg when you come up here. It'll be fun.
I've heard the lore.
It'll be a nice eye-opening experience for you guys. I kind of want to be there when you first show, like, see the
Do they have
venomous
a showering station outside, or where do I hose down after?
You go home and you just pour like the nicks and stuff right on you. But yeah. But he brought the leucistic Texas rat and he pulls it out and it's sitting on his hands all nice and happy. And it leucistic rat snakes look awesome. They have that big kind of arrow kind of head. So it's just sitting there and he says these words. He goes, "This one is my buddy." And then it just nails him right in the face. And he's bleeding everywhere. And from that moment, I'm like, these things are so cool. I don't know why that did it, but and then
that seems like that would validate
the wrong thing, right? Yeah, I don't know. So then we go to Hamburg, we check out some stuff, we go back to his house where he had carpet pythons, white lips, a bunch of stuff. So from there, it just stumbled out of control. My 18th birthday, I got my first carpet python as a pet. And then it was done. You know, you go from one snake to 2 snakes to 12 snakes. There's never anybody out there with like 4 or like 6. It's 12. And I kept them all in my college dorm room.
So were you in like one of those situations where it's you and a roommate in a dorm and
yep. Yeah.
Everyone was cool with the situation?
No. No, not at all. It was one of those things where my first couple years, my first year of college, I didn't really, Chris was my roommate and then he left. So then I didn't have a roommate. And then the second year I had a roommate that was cool. And then I moved into one of those big quads and everybody just kind of left me alone, which was bad because if I'm left alone, I end up getting more of them. So, you know, it got to the point where everybody kind of knew I had them, but nobody could really prove it if you were, you know, somebody could get me in trouble. So there was literally an email sent around by the college saying that they were responding to the reports of rogue reptiles in Cook Hall, which is where I was. And I'm like, oh, that's done. So that's where rogue came from. And from that point on, that was it. And just kept growing. It went from, I think I left college with 15 carpet pythons. And if they had caught me, it would have been $500 per animal, wow. $200 per paraphernalia. So every cage, every hide box, and every frozen rat in my freezer would have cost me, I'd still be paying is what it would have done. And I would have gotten expelled. So I got close a few times, caught a few times, and
so did you still keep after that email?
Of course. Are you kidding me? I framed
How
that
many
email.
years?
Well, that email came out, I think, when I was a sophomore and I graduated. So, yeah, I mean, that would catch me. So,
you never were like, let me move to an apartment.
No. I mean, I probably should have, but I wasn't thinking that's good snake money could be spent on an apartment. I mean, come on. So,
and how quickly do you become the snake guy with the reptiles in room, whatever?
Oh my God. I always had a saying that we had, I had my cell phone the entire time. And then the dorm provided you with like a push button cord phone, like one of those ones you would see from like whenever. And if that phone ever rang, it's because somebody got my phone number and they wanted to know what was wrong with the ball python they just bought at PetSmart. So it was like I was going over people's dorms where they had their illegal snake. And I'm like, well, he's a little cold. You might want to bump up the heat a little bit. Or, oh, he's got mites. You want to try this. And it was like, I'm learning all this stuff. And then a week later, I'm regurgitating it for somebody else. So it's like, but yeah, it's no point was I stopping.
So what did you study in school?
I have a degree in small animal science, pre-veterinary medicine from Delaware Valley University. It's down
so
here.
You went into zoos, correct, out of college?
Yeah. Went into a small zoo that was not AZA accredited, it was ZAA accreditation. So it's a little bit stepped down. And they did a lot of outreach educational programs. And they brought me on, and apparently because you can hear me clear across an auditorium when I'm talking normal, they decided to have me go out there and do that stuff. So I spent about 2 years traveling around doing educational programs and working at a zoo afterwards. So, but yeah, it was head of reptiles and education.
So what kind of animals were you working with there?
We had the snake stuff. So we had, a bunch of different colubrids, and that's where I kind of got more exposure to venomous and other things like that. But then we also had the mammals, which they had it was such a small zoo, such a small staff. They let us like take the babies home and stuff like that. So, I mean, I've raised 2 lions, a tiger, African crested porcupine, spectacled owl, a lesser yellow vulture, macaws, kinkajou, a bear. Bears suck. All right. That was not fun at all. But
when you said they let me bring things home, I thought you meant like a snake.
No,
not a fucking lion.
No, they're fine. I mean, like the snakes you can leave in the bin overnight. It's like, yeah, whatever. It was the lions and stuff. They were the ones that needed bottles like every 2 hours. But my favorite, like beyond all, were the kangaroos. I mean, if I ever get a farm and it's filled with kangaroos, I've won the lottery and I'm not telling anybody. So, yeah, I definitely I miss the kangaroos probably the most. So. They're cool.
What made you move on from that zoo?
The zoo itself, actually, because it was an AZA accredited, started getting into a little bit of the back end of the animal rights stuff. And you kind of, when you're in the inside, you're playing with tigers and it's all kind of cool. But then you also know it's not really the best situation for stuff. So I also enjoyed seeing daylight because you didn't do that if you're in a tiny zoo and you're getting there by 6 to leave for educational programs to get back to the zoo by 7 to finish up what the reptile staff left for you or doing all this stuff, leaving by 1, back by 6. So I just decided to go and actually pursued teaching biology in high school in Philadelphia. Wait,
what? I didn't know that.
I know, right? And it went about as well as you think it would have gone.
Do you like kids?
Not anymore. So, I mean, I like my nephew, so that's like 1, right? I mean, that's. But yeah, I did that for a hot minute, and then I went and started selling insurance, and that's where I'm at now. So
you would think someone who works with animals, as a hobby would want to do it as a career. Why didn't you stick with it in that sense?
I would say that doing it as a career is difficult. And I like everybody who does it professionally, like more power to you guys. There's a lot of shit and decisions that you have to make that I could not. And I think it kind of just went to the place of what I should have been doing during my college days when I had no worries is like mucking myself down into these zoos and like gutting fish all day and getting paid pennies. And then when it mattered and I had all these bills and stuff, I couldn't really do all that stuff. So I'd want to say that when it comes to that, it's very hard to kind of shift around and do a lot of stuff and afford some things for a certain amount of time. But if you can make it work, more power to you. I just couldn't. So
I think it's so shitty that people don't realize that, like, when you start as a zookeeper or something like that, you're making like $12 an hour.
Oh yeah,
you could pretty much work anywhere and make as much as you can make as a zookeeper with a college degree, and it's kind of a shitty situation because they kind of take advantage of the fact that you love your job per se, or you love what you're doing.
And
with teachers.
Yeah, exactly. So besides Owen, Owen got out of there real fast. But it's one of those things where you also got to understand every zoo has a filing cabinet full of applications from people who are insanely qualified and insanely good at their job. So they always have the pick of the litters when it comes to that kind of stuff. And again, I have friends who made it work, and I'm thoroughly impressed with them and how they do it. And I have some who, just like me, tried the best they could and then ended up having to take out of it. But it's one of those things. I have the reason I was able to even do it is I have Rogue. I have the snakes. I'm not totally unplugged. So
yeah. So now you're in Rogue for how long before you kind of meet Eric and start NPR?
Oh my God. It was shit. When was that? I don't know, 6 years ago. Whenever we've been doing the show for 6 years. So do math.
You were already selling insurance and doing all that during that time.
No, I think I was working at University of Pennsylvania in their animal labs, which is the other side of animal stuff that is not so much fun.
Does that include rat shit? Lots of rat shit?
Lots. That's why I don't breed my own rats. That sucks. All right. It was horrible. But it was, yeah. So the people like, breed your rat? No, never again. So, and that was the day job. And then I'd come home and I'd go down to the snake room and I would have everyone's attention. They'd all know I was there. You just smelled it. But it was 6 years ago. So Eric tried the first ever NPR episode solo. And if you can ever get an audio recording of that, it is fantastic. So, because it's very hard to talk to yourself for however long. I mean,
especially when you're not used to it because you haven't done it for 6 years. Maybe now you would be able to do it.
I can't even do it. Do you watch when he goes away? Have you listened to the show? When he leaves me, I'm just like, and yeah, hi everybody. Like, no, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So he did the one episode and he realized it was going to be difficult. So he posts on the Morelia Pythons forum, which is gone now, that he was looking for a co-host. And I knew of Eric, but mainly it was because of like Eric, because he was running around buying like a ton of snakes. And I'm like, this one looks pretty. And like, sold. Thank you, Eric. I'm like, God damn this guy. Who is this guy? He's buying all this shit I want. And like, so he says that he needs a podcast, needs a co-host. So, and he throws it out there and nobody has, a bunch of people seen it. Nobody has replied. Nobody said anything. So I kind of tussled with it for maybe a good hour. And then I'm like, all right, yeah, sure. Why not? I'll do one or two of these, whatever. So I messaged him. I said, hey, I can help you out. I can do this with you. I'm thinking 2 shows, 3 shows. And then like one of us will be like, I don't really feel like doing it this week. And then we'd call it quits or something. And it's like, and it kept going. And like it still isn't stopped. I have to do it tomorrow. So, it's, but that's really kind of where it went. And the first show that he and I did together, he kind of interviewed me. And that was probably the second conversation we had ever had.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so it was like, we maybe had like one talk before the show. And I'm like, wow. So yeah.
Was it instant chemistry?
Love at first sight. I mean, no, because there was a lot of dead air. There was a lot of talking and then not knowing when to talk, not knowing when he was going to talk, not knowing what his sense of humor was or mine was and how they played off each other. So it was a lot of, and it sucks, and that's horrible. And you had to kind of learn. And then you do a couple episodes, you get more relaxed and you can kind of see through in the first season. Maybe we start getting more and more comfortable. We start kind of taking jabs at each other and we start kind of getting it to be a little bit of a thing where we kind of, if you can get people laughing, everything just relaxes and you don't feel as stiff. And as long as Eric and I are having fun doing the show, it's very rare that we have a nervous guest anymore, just because it's just like talking to him like anything else. Like I'm pretending nothing else is happening. I'm just talking to you guys. So
yeah. Did you like act like you were a radio guy or something? I can't imagine you not being yourself.
I was stiff. I was like, and tonight on at Morelia Python radio. Yeah. Like, no, it's like, I had to say the whole thing every time and I would screw up people's names because I suck at that kind of stuff. And I'd be like devastated the next day when they're like, oh yeah, you kept calling Sean Christensen the entire time. I'm like, shit. So, but you get over that kind of stuff. You kind of realize that you just kind of roll with it and you feel better after a little bit and it gets easier. So.
Did you guys even know each other? Like you're both from the same general area, and you didn't even know of each other?
Nope. Eric had been into pythons, and then he took a hiatus, and it's like his hiatus is right like when I was coming up, so it was like we like missed each other. And the funnier thing is, where I did all that teaching stuff that we kind of tried for a little bit was like 5 minutes from Eric's house. Like I drove the first time I went over to Eric's house, I'm like, I've been here before. Oh shit! And I'm like, there's. So we just never even occurred to us. He had contacted me once asking to buy a snake, and then he didn't buy it and disappeared. So I'm like, all right, screw you, guy. But and then we did the podcast, and I think I brought it up like 3 or 4 times on the show, and then he eventually bought it. I'm like, aha. So we were playing the long game. 2-year wait, I see. It's like, yeah. So it's one of those things you just kind of feel it out. But yeah, we never nothing. No inkling of them.
So just in case you were wondering, there's no hate in the chat. It is just Eric and Owen. You are one of the biggest reasons why we have a carpet python.
Is that Bill Stiegel? Is he around here? Where is he?
No, I'm sure he'll show up eventually. But
yeah.
But where was your collection at when you first started NPR?
I had 6 coastal carpet python.
Woo!
That was it. That was it. I had nothing but carpets, and I think I just left college and was broke, which is why I went from like 15 to like 6. And I think I had like 2 king snakes kicking around, which that was my first ever snake. Non-python was a Cali King. So if I can have those around, I'm always happy. But that's where we were at, or where I was at. And my knowledge was really very pigeonholed to coastal carpet pythons.
Yeah.
It's insanely obvious when you listen to like the first scrub show that I ever did solo. Because it's horrible, and I wish it was like just delete from. People are like, what's the worst episode? I'm like, that one. If I could have that one back and destroy it, and no one will ever need to listen to it again, be totally happy. But you get on the show and start talking to people, and then the collection just starts growing, and things happen, and things just start accruing, and you start talking to these people who this snake is their entire passion. And they've devoted their entire collection to it, and you can't help but get hooked. That's why I can't go online during the show anymore. I'd be like, Maclet's python, click. Like I'd be buying during the show, and that's bad. So, but yeah, that was it was only those coastals.
That's a weird thing. Like I wish I could be that guy too, who has like that one thing. But I talk to people too, and we're in the Barron's Racers now.
Oh, we were literally
oh my god, they're gorgeous
for like an hour last week after it. Like they're so pretty.
There was a pair of the blue ones at a Hamburg show in a tank, and I'm pretty sure the guy was going to ask me to leave because I was like up against the tank like this, going like, "They're so pretty," and they're like, he's like, "Dude, you gonna buy them?" I'm like, "What?" So yeah, they're gorgeous. Every time I bring up an animal that's like slightly venomous on the show, Rob Stone usually messages me the next day to tell me how stupid I am and how I'm going to die. And I'm like, all right, I won't have it. Like, there's all that kind of stuff, but they're on my like secret, don't tell Rob Stone list. So,
well, as a citizen of the state of Pennsylvania, you can pretty much keep whatever the fuck.
Oh,
you want,
dear God, yes. I mean,
to a fault.
It's no sugar gliders. They catch you with a sugar glider, you are in freaking trouble. But and you'll notice that the reptile shows in state to state is very different. PA, it's its own creature. I mean, crocodiles, venomous. I've seen some things at the Hamburg show that I wouldn't necessarily approve of, but that's me.
It happens.
Yeah, not my kid. So,
well, you kind of said it there, but
yeah.
So, what was the first thing that you got out of, your coastal carpet? Did you go to a different carpet, or did you jump totally out of it?
I think I jumped totally out of it, to be honest with you, because I had coastals, and then it took me a while to get jungles and IJs, just because I didn't really feel the need to. What pulled me out of it was when Eric's incubator broke. He came over with his clutch, and this was like one of the first U.S. clutches of zebra jags. no pressure, putting them in my incubator at all.
Dude,
So
was that like Eric's like first clutch or something?
it was
He
one
must
of
have been
them.
pretty green.
Oh, it was one of them where he was like, I'm going to do nothing but maternal incubation. And then the female's like, I don't want these eggs. And he's like, shit, what now? And I'm like, oh, I guess you're screwed. And he brought them over here to my house. And I'm like, all right, we'll throw them in the incubator. And we throw the eggs in the incubator and they're fine. They hatched, they're whatever. And then he has this box behind him, a little plastic container. And he's like, this is for you. I'm like, all right, well, and I open it up and it's a juvenile Macklot's python. It's my Macklot's python glitch. And hence his name, because there was a glitch in Eric's incubating system. So, and that was it. And that started the whole Liasis thing for me. It was like, he was so cool and he had freckles and he was awesome. So that led to another Mac, and that led to water pythons, that led to Savu pythons, that led to olive pythons. So, and that kind of steamrolled with carpets. It's like, I almost fell into the other types of carpets. You have Carpet Fest, you have interactions with all these people, and then Jason Balin's like, hey man, you want a zebra? I'm like, I do. And he goes, cool. I'm like, well, shit, now I need jungles. So, and that's started that. And that's how that kind of went with all the other ones too. But with the outside stuff, anything outside of Morelia was just talking with people who were hooked into them and getting dragged down with them. So
for reference, before NPR, about 6 snakes. What are you at now?
The current tally is 94 adult and raising animals. So it's like sub-adults and juvies that I've kept to raise myself. I have 20 babies that are currently for sale, and I have 100 eggs in the incubator.
There you go.
Lots.
That's very specific.
To answer that quick. Well, and I found out about this because I never like to count. Counting is bad. Never count. I decided to do like a food chart to kind of keep a better idea of what I needed food wise. And I accidentally counted everything and I found out that way. So.
Okay. Now it's interesting because you phrased it as pre-NPR and now, but is NPR the reason he has that, or just the fact that it's been 6 years?
A little bit of both.
Why you asked it that way, but like
it's a mixture of both. It's honest to God, a mixture of both, because some of the pythons that I have downstairs were babies when NPR started. I mean, and they're now breeding adults and stuff like that, and then their kids and their grandkids. So it's also the combination of all the projects that I never bred in college. I just kept. So it's kind of everything is now, all the projects have now been going, and holdbacks have been breeding and stuff like that. So it's definitely that definitely has helped, but also NPR has helped too, because there were some things that were kind of brought to my attention that I didn't really, whatever, it's not my thing. It's not a carpet python, forget about it. So, and then talking with people who've kept them and bred them, I'm like, maybe I'll take a look at them again, or going over and seeing somebody's collection, like with Carpet Fest and stuff like that, it's just kind of brought things to the forefront. And then has me move into those different species in different directions.
Is there any species to where you got into it because of NPR, then you're like, fuck these things?
Oh, dear God, many. Tons. I mean, I don't have a single scrub here anymore because they suck. But I got tons of scrubs because we were talking to Dave Means and doing this and the other thing. I had Moluccans and all this other stuff, Tannenbars, Barnecks, and I kept getting bit and ripped into, and I'm like, hey, get out of here. Blood pythons, Borneos, things like that. I got them, and I couldn't keep it happy. It was flipping out. It was, and also I didn't like how they would just all of a sudden have a massive shit every month, and like just it was horrible. So I ended up giving her
one big shit.
Yeah, it's like for everything it was holding in once, and no good. So I ended up giving that to Matt Minatola. So yeah, there's been a few things where things just kind of shift around. So
awesome. So let's get back to Liasis.
Mm-hmm.
What are you working with in Liasis, and what do you have breeding pairs of, or supposed breeding pairs of?
Well, I have pairs of everything. I have is pairs because I hate having like a single animal that's just like here. I'm like, oh, good, you're taking up a bin still. That's nice. So I have Macklot's pythons. I have water pythons. I have a pair of Savu pythons, but they're still little. And then I have an adult pair of olive pythons.
All right. So now that the only two people who give a shit about water pythons are here, how far off are you on breeding them? Have you tried to breed them, and what's your progress?
Well, I constantly do this thing where I raise up a pair and then I decide that it might not work. So then I like swap out a male or a female and then end up screwing myself. So we did that this year, where I had a pair and I had a boy, and I spoke to Eric Kohler and he needed one. So I sent the boy to him because someone had given me another male, an older, bigger, kind of more robust boy that I thought would definitely be able to handle my big, mean female. So Eric Kohler sends me a picture of the male I just sent him, like breeding right out of the box. And I got nothing going on this year. So it's like, oh, that's nice. So it's one of those things where I did try, but I never really seem to get them to go, get new animals to go the year I get them. It usually takes them about a year to settle. So hopefully I'll get them next year.
Have you heard of a breeding size or age for them?
Aside from just going by normal Python stuff, like 4 years for girls, 2 years for boys, I've not heard anything else other than, 4 foot, 2 foot kind of deal, anything like that. I've not heard anything special. So,
well, I'm just worrying for selfish reasons because mine's like 3 years old and it's like the size of a corn snake, and I'm like, I don't know if that's right.
Well, it's one of those things where I've definitely been. If you kind of listen back to NPR, the first couple years, I was like, feed everything, big meals, get it huge, and I'm like, that's dumb. So, and also expensive. So I like to kind of keep things a little bit slow and grow slower nowadays. So I think my female's like 6. Something like that, maybe even a little bit older. And like this was the first time I introduced her to a male. Okay. So I would say 4 years, 2 years old, size of a corn snake for a boy. Fine. Yeah, whatever. I think you do it. So I've been surprised by male pythons with their size and how they breed before. So I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too roped into our shit, but I never.
But let me ask him as many questions.
No. I mean, I never.
That's fine. It's whatever.
Well, I'm an idiot who's never weighed a corn snake ever, and I always tell people it needs to be 300 grams. At least that's what people told me. I weighed my female that laid like 9 eggs. She's 180 grams, but she's 4 years old. So the Miami Okatee, and that's small. That's like our biggest project. But she's fat. She's nice. She's just short.
Told them the 300 grams, 3 years, whatever the other one is.
Yeah, and 3 feet. But it's bullshit.
She's 2 out of the 3. She's 3 years and 3 feet.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to prove none of that shit matters. So
it really doesn't. I mean, I had a 4-year-old python that was probably the smallest python I've ever bred, carpet, this year, breed. And I was like, all right, you're going to give me like 4 eggs. Whoop-de-frickin' do. She dropped like 12. I'm like, holy crap. All right, well, I know nothing. I know nothing anymore. So it's one of those things where it's sometimes if they're going to cycle, they're ready to go. They know their bodies better than I do. So.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes these females cycle whether you pair them or not. So it's like, might as well get the job done.
Might as well get something out of it. So you go. Yeah. So
where are you on your max at this point?
The max have been like the bane of my existence project because it's like I've gotten like this close like 4 times and it just sucks. I had my original male Glitch, who's still here. And then I ended up picking up a female for him. And I got locks and I got eggs. And then I moved up to my current house in Birdsboro. And I did that in December because that was smart. And she ended up slugging out. And when she slugged out, something must have happened internally because she passed probably about a week or 2 later, which sucks because I didn't have anything else. So right now I'm in the current phase of raising 2 females to try to get back into the MAC game, but we'll see. So hopefully soon.
That sucks.
Yeah. You got to do good things, bad things. Shit happens.
Yeah. Savus.
We're
just gonna go down the ladder.
All right. We'll go down the ladder. I had a pair of Savus a while ago, and then due to financial reasons, let them go because somebody offered me money I needed for them, and I always regretted that. Like immediately, like the box left, I'm like, no, you shouldn't have done that, and I ended up getting them again, and I have them now, and I got them from Milan, and they are holy terrors. I mean, they will jump out of the box, wrap up, the mouse and then go down the tongs and just kind of hold on to it. And you're like, all right, I'm just going to put these in here with you and grab another pair of tongs. And then if you feed the next Evu, you're out 2 tongs. So they are definitely jumpy, flighty, and I love them because of their orange color, and they just kind of lose it. So it's kind of like watching them color change is really kind of cool. I am definitely looking forward to them, but it's going to be a couple of years before them. And then the next ones are the olive pythons, who I've been trying to get them to breed for the past 2 years, and I haven't gotten anything out of them. So I haven't gotten locks. So I don't know what's up with
What are the ages on those two?
7 years. I got them from Tom Kyogen. So yeah, they're actually Chris got them from Tom Kyogen, and Chris sent them to me. So they're about 7, so they should be doing something by now. So I ended up picking up another male olive to try to see if I can get something going with them. But if they don't do anything, they'll just be right there with the white lips, just taunting me. So,
let's speak about other things that
yes, other things I can't breed that look at me. Yeah, whatever. Because we
went through Liasis because you don't have Dunce pythons.
Not yet.
Way to go.
Yeah, Jesus. I gotta check that little box. But with white lips, the first white lip I saw was at Chris's place, and it was a black male. And he opens this like drawer bin. He opens it up, and this male just comes like flying right out of the cage, lands on the ground, and rears up, open mouth, like chases him around the room. And I'm like, I must have this. So it's like that was my introduction to white lip, and I still have them. And I'm surprised when they're mean to me. But right now I have a pair of captive born and bred adult goldface, and Chris has some blackface that I'm kind of in there with him too. So, but definitely a really, really cool species that I think are a little underrated, especially when they're in the sunlight. And I would love to see more of them produced. So hopefully I can do that.
In a way, I feel like they aren't underrated, but underutilized as far as breeding. I feel like every show you go to, there's an imported white lip, and they're sold, but they disappear after a certain amount of time, or people just suck. I don't know.
I definitely think people give a try to white lips. They maybe have a pair or 2, and then they kind of realize that they're not like other pythons, and they just kind of bag them and let them go, which is fine. I mean, we've said this on NPR. If you kind of want to research and dip your toe into a species, do it right. And then if it's not for you, back out. It's fine. So
I do have to say they're a good Instagram snake. If that makes sense, because of that iridescent, you may not see that many people keeping them, but I see white lips and rainbow boas and all that shit.
Well, yeah, that's why Owen got white lips for his
Instagram. I did. So they're actually never on there, but
got him.
But I will say that I've had non-snake people literally come up to me and be like, I saw a rainbow colored snake. And you need to get this snake. I'm like, it's probably a white lip. And they're like, no. I'm like, it's a white lip. They're like, no. I'm like, all right, fine. You know more about this. Why don't you go ahead and show me? It's a white lip. It's like, yeah, and that's what it is. It's that people are like, it was like oil. I'm like, yeah. So they definitely leave a lasting impression.
See, and you think that'd be enough to get people to keep them, but what's probably happening is exactly like he said. They get them,
you out of your
they
room,
realize they're
fuck.
I mean, I want one. I've been telling him I want one, but then I hear stories like that. I'm like, nah, so I might just settle for the other rainbow one and just go with the rainbow boa.
I will say this, that my adult pair the male is kind of chill. Female's a horrible thing from the depths of hell. But I had a captive born and bred trio of babies that Chris has them now. And they were just like any other baby python. Normal. No fuss, no nothing. Totally fine. So I think as you start getting more and more generations of captive born bred animals, you may get calmer animals, and it may be a species that kind of has a resurgence or something like that when there's a ton of them out there. So
have you heard anything more on, I know Dan Mallory had a video, I believe it's Tamika locality or whatever, that were supposedly very, very chill. Have you heard much about those in the hobby or who has them?
I've heard all that stuff, and I know some people who do have them. And I've heard the same thing, that they are pretty chilled out, pretty calm. I've had blackface white lip that were totally fine, which the hell if I know if they were Tamika locality, because no one cared about it when I had them or when I bought them. But I've also had black-faced white lip that were flighty, nervous, bitey, same thing. So I don't know. I've never had any Tamika. It definitely would be something I would want to look into. But
are there any issues commonly with them? Because I just don't see that many adults out there. Or how many babies are coming in all the time.
Well, I mean, like the other thing is that a lot of times when it's a baby shoved into like a water bottle and sent over or something like that, it's had a pretty rough go in the beginning. And then, like you said, or what we said before, sometimes people just want to bag it and move it. And people have pairs and one dies, and then you have lone male, lone females kicking around. So there aren't too many adults. So it's almost like if they reach adulthood, they kind of just settle and they're with somebody, and that's where they end up being. The one thing I will definitely say that will freak out every single white lip keeper the first time they have them is when they regurgitate a hairball. That really kind of messes with people. They're not prepared for that.
So do you think that it's a product of them not being used to digesting rodents? Yeah. Or is it just what they do?
I don't know. I haven't seen any kind of a research that and then the python in the wild coughed up a freaking hairball. But I would say that it's probably more along the lines of them not being able to tolerate European rodent hair. And it's either going to come out one end or the other. So they just decide to go that way. So, but yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And is it a hack, or is it just like you thought it regurged and it's just hair?
I've mistook them for urates until you get closer to them, and then you're like, oh, because they're white and they're clumpy, and then you see it's furry. And I've definitely seen it where it looks like it kind of just goes really easily, and the snake just goes like bleh. But then I've also seen it where it's like writhing a little bit, and you're like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? And then it just big hairball. You're like, oh, gross. Thank you. So that kind of stuff.
You think there would be any validity to trying out like Reptilinks, or just something that excludes the fur, or at least fully intact fur?
I think it would be something to do. I know that I was suggested earlier after we talked about hairballs on NPR, because Eric just got his first pair of white lips, so I'm waiting for him to text me and be like, what the hell? And I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah. So somebody told me to cut the skin just like a few slices on the back of the rat to see if that would help the snake digest the hair a little bit more. And it's something that, I think somebody would try. I don't know. I'm lazy. He eats the rat. Cool. Bye. I'll see you later. So, that kind of a deal.
Yeah, I do that with my green tree. We've talked about it a few times, but there's like a corn snake study that corn snakes, when they're starting in the wild, it's very rare for them to eat a rodent in comparison to all the other shit that's plentiful out there in the wild. Right. So the babies actually don't digest, the pinkies as well as they would if you just put like a little slit in them. And then there's this vet that did a study to where there were animals that were up to 2 times bigger just by putting slits in the rodents so that they would properly digest them. So
damn,
I think that's where that comes from. So that's
well, I don't want huge white lips, so I'm already not liking this. Last thing I need is my big monsters to get bigger. So
yeah, it's enrichment.
Mm-hmm.
I have a weird question that I don't know if there's an answer to, and it's not on topic, so he's probably gonna get mad at me. Does Eric have more influence over you, or do you have more influence over Eric?
I would say it depends on the day, so it depends on the topic. It's one of those things where he and I have seen each other's collections like a million times. And I've picked up snakes for him, and he's picked up snakes for me, where I'll be like, dude, check this thing out. And he's like, that's freaking awesome. And then like later he's like, dude, I had to buy one. I'm like, all right, cool. And the same thing goes with it goes the other way around. So, but I will also say there's certain lines that certain things I know he won't cross and won't do. And there's certain things that he knows I won't do. Like I won't do Borneos or Bloods. No, that's Matt Minatola's area, and it's your area. Have fun. He won't do colubrids. So it's just the way of thing. Like we can still both appreciate each other's stuff and the pictures we send back and forth. But if I want him to come over and buy a couple beauty snakes, that ain't gonna happen. So it's just the way it is. So.
Yeah, that's so weird because I don't think people realize how attentive and how smart all the colubrids are. Because I think you just got to keep like enough of something like a beauty
think
snake.
They're dumb.
Yeah, well, people think they're like little kid.
Well, I've seen some colubrids do some dumb shit. I've seen some scrubs do some dumb shit. I had a scrub eat a probe, but like I opened up the bin and it was like the probe was down its mouth and it was like up against the wall because it had eaten all it could. And I'm like, well, you're what? Why? And so that happens. So.
But those are the smartest snakes out there.
Always, yeah. They're the ones who follow you around the room because they're so smart. Yet they eat probes when you're not looking.
AKA, they just want to eat anything with a heat signature.
Exactly. But, so it's just the way it is. It's some snakes. Snakes can be stupid. Snakes can be smart. It is what it is.
So, how did you, from kink snakes? It seems like a recent thing that you got into colubrids. And also, can you tell us the origin of how you pronounce colubrid? Because everyone pronounces it different, and you don't change the way you pronounce it ever.
Colubrid, colubrid, I don't care. Well, first off, it's just like I pronounce things crappy and shitty all the time. And until somebody who is of like a more learned and higher thing comes over and says, "Hey, Owen, it's this," I'll go, okay, and then I'll fix it. But until then,
I contact Merriam-Webster dictionary.
No, it had to be someone fluent in Latin, and that'd be
anybody. Find me somebody.
I'm determined. I'm so determined because it pains my soul to hear you say it that way.
I know. I've ruined so many people's ears over the years. It's just ridiculous.
Okay, I'm on a hunt. Latin person.
Let's find me a Latin professor.
Find me a Latin person.
And they're all going to disagree with you and disagree too. So this launch a years long study. Oh God, it's horrible. But when it comes to them, I just kind of again, there have been numerous times where I've said dumb shit because that's how I heard somebody say it to me once, and just keep regurgitating it until someone tells me not to or tells me the correct way. So is what it is. But with the colubrid thing, with it coming kind of newish, I always had king snakes and I always had corn snakes. And what I always ended up doing was when I had a ton of baby pythons, I would kind of let I'd let them kind of trickle out. Like I'd sell a few pairs of corn snakes. I'd get rid of the king snakes. I'd, need more bins for this. And then I'd miss them. And I'd be like, oh, I don't really have the cow kings and all those other things like I usually do. So I'd get another one. So probably about 2 years ago, I'm like, you're going to get them. You're just going to freaking keep them this time because there's no more of this crap. So I started just grabbing up some stuff. And I know that I'd worked with northern pine snakes at the zoo, breeding them. And they were like first on my list of things to get. And then after that, it was just a slow trickle into same thing with pythons. You talk to this guy and he says these things are awesome. You go at his place, you check them out, and then you're like, I need these. So I traded my last green tree python to Buddy Buscemi. He gave me a trio of rhino rat snakes. That led to looking into beauty snakes. I got my pair of Vietnamese blue beauties. Then I picked up some corn snakes, some cow kings, and then talking to Riley and then going out to Tinley this year, I bit hard on the Madagascan Hognose snakes. And I got a pair of them out there. And then I just got a trio of the golden back here. And then I gotta get the speckled because they're like my Dunn's pythons. It pisses me off that I don't have them all. So I have to go get those. But that's pretty much how that stuff started. And I'm enjoying it. So it's kind of like a getting back to the roots kind of a deal.
Yeah, and there's so many things with the attitude that you like without the scrub consequences.
Yes. I fed today before the show and I didn't get bit, which is good. Otherwise I'd be like coming on with like blood coming down my neck or something. I don't know. But I went to go feed my pine snake and it was dark blue. And I'm like, here's your rat. And it curled up in the corner and just started like hissing and puffing up, and I'm like, oh, you're so funny, and I just closed the drawer. So it's kind of nice to watch that kind of stuff and kind of see them do their thing and their different interactions with, like, the puffing of the necks and standing up, and it's different than the pythons. I think if you had, all power to the people who specialize in a certain type of snake, but if you have the same thing in every single cage and every single drawer, I don't know, I think I'd get bored. So.
But it's a banana albino trick, dude. You don't even understand.
Head for hippopotamus. So yeah. Yeah, that's what I don't understand.
it's like the pines. It's like you are like reminded all the time, like, oh yeah, I have a wild animal because this thing fucking hates me. It's not cuddly.
No. It's and they've got the keeled scales and they're all kind of rough and pissed off.
That was your first one you wanted?
Yeah, of course. I mean, come on now. So, of course, I have a thing for like bumpy scaled snakes. I don't know why, because like I got the Morelia carinata, and I'm like, I love you. So, and they just have keeled scales, and they have this thing where they'll like open their bottom jaw and show you all their lovely teeth, and I'm like, I love that. So
yeah, and have this thing where they musk on you and they rattle and try
to bite you and breeding bull snakes, you can hear them 3 rooms away pissed off at each other. It's like, yeah, that's what I want. That's exactly what I want. Give me the angry pissed off thing, because it's just going to be fun. It's going to be not like just laying there. I'm like, okay, I guess it's a snake. No, I want an animal.
An animal.
Yeah, I don't want something that's just kind of like there. It's like, yeah, that's no fun. So
speaking of smartness, actually, I don't know if it goes with that, but the other night our pine snake was so loud. I swear it was trying to use its hide as like a ramming thing into the side, like hoping that the hide would break.
We're having an issue with
it kept hitting on the tub.
I don't know if you know how strong like an adult male pine snake is, but for whatever reason, when it's breeding season, and he will just fucking ram his face into the cage until he's a bloody mess.
Oh yeah.
And I need to feed him constantly, or else he'll keep on ramming his fucking face into shit. And I'm just like, if I put a rat in his mouth, he'll stop. So
for a little bit, yeah.
It's
but
for like 3 days, and then he'll pick a giant shit.
Yeah, exactly. You're fussy right now. Here's your rat, and you go to bed. But I actually do know, because my colubrid rack that's in my side room is actually a natural spirits. So it's a 41 quart, but it's set long ways. So you pull them out like big drawers, and they actually have 2 big metal security bars that latch in at the bottom and latch in at the top, so that the snake can't shove the drawer open a little bit and fly out. So, but because if I didn't do that, pine snakes would be the first ones out. I can tell you that right. And they're just getting to the point where, because I actually tried breeding them first time next year, but they're just getting to the size now where they are realizing that they're stronger than they used to be, and they are trying to do crap like that. So I'm like, stop it, please. Like, I'm looking at all the other, like the rhinos, like they'll try with their like stupid scaly horn, but they're not going anywhere. Like no one, it feels like they need to properly secure the rhino rat snake. I close your drawer, you're defeated. The bull snakes, I'm like, or the bull snakes and the pine snakes, I'm like locking you in, like just keeping you here. Thanks, guys. So yeah, same thing.
So with you first got into Asian rat snakes, I saw you also picked up, I don't know if they're considered green rat snakes or the ones that everyone's like, oh, I don't know about you.
The red tail green rat snakes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got them.
Have them?
No, I do not. I got
You've learned real fucking quick.
I did. I really did. I got them because I'm like, you're kind of like my blue beauty snakes. They hated me too in the beginning. You'll learn. And these ones didn't learn. I mean, like they were definitely puffy and like, flail up and do all other fun stuff, but they never settled. And it kind of came a little bit of a hassle to feed them, where they would be so pissed off at my presence and the fact that I brought them the rat that they wouldn't eat, or they'd like throw it and eat it. And they were kind of just becoming one of those things where the enjoyment level was kind of dipping down. So like I said, I tried them. I set them up. I did everything. I read everything. I tried to do it. I talked with numerous people who've capped them. They just weren't for me. So ended up just letting them go and moving on to the next thing, which unfortunately was the Madagascan hogs that have kept my interest. And they're worse. I mean, dear God, they hood up and they're like, it's like a miniature cobra, and I love it. So
are they more skittish than, say, a Western or even your Easterns and stuff that you find in the States, or do you have a comparison?
I would say I've never seen a Western or an Eastern that is as nervous as they are, or a little bit or as defensive.
I may be able to show you one.
Well, that's the thing is, though, it's like, but how many generations of Western are we looking at here? It's like maybe the first couple of years of Westerns, they were, you know, just the same. But I've seen some Westerns that are noisy, but never these guys. I think I have a picture somewhere of like my one like hooded up. So yeah.
I mean, it definitely shows the fact that Westerns don't play dead anymore and that kind of thing. Like, obviously, behavior is much different in the wild now than you find in your captives. But Madagascar and Hognose obviously get a bit bigger. How much bigger do they get? And like, does that pose a little bit more of an issue?
It poses a little bit more of an issue, and I've been talking about this with Riley because he's the guy who kind of turned me onto it. And like, I think
that's Riley Jimison.
Yes, it is. That's Riley Jimison. Yep. I texted Eric that I got the first pair of Madagascar and Hogs, like, and then I think a minute went by, and then Riley was like just blowing up my phone. I'm like, who? So Eric told you, and he was like, oh my god, dude. And then like the rest of the time I was in Tinley, he was just like flooding information. He sent me like several papers. He and I bounced ideas off each other about setting them up. He and I were going into the gold project together because we got the one trio. So we're trying to work out what's going on with that because I didn't have it, he didn't have it, and now I got to hunt down some spectacles. But I don't think it's going to pose a problem for me because I have a ton of larger snake enclosures. So even if they do get bigger than a Western per se, I think they're going to stay right around smaller than a pine snake or a bull snake. So I got plenty of those, and we're okay.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what I think I'm going to be looking at. Is just a smaller, more angry pine snake.
So did you get them as import babies, or what are you working with?
My pair of the giants I got as captive hatched babies at Tinley. And it was one of those, I was walking around, like every time you go to a place like Tinley, it seems like this is the year for something. And it's like on every table. So I just happened to find a pair of babies on one of the tables that they're seeing a ton of adults. So I just jumped on them. And so they're captive hatched, but then the trio of golds were wild caught. So I'm trying to see what I can do with those to try to produce my own golds. And then I'm still on the hunt, like I said, I try to get baby animals because I feel like if they're raised in my care, they know what I'm doing. They know how to situate, and
they know the Owen way.
Exactly. They spent their entire lives here, you know, and that's it. People always say that the easiest animals to get to breed are the ones that you hatched and raised yourself because they don't know anything else. They know your routine from the second they were born. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do is hunt down younger ones. So we'll see how this goes.
And as much as I totally see how that's true, I'm so impatient. And I'm always like, no, I want adults so I can breed them next year. Like, that's the fun part. Like,
I know that. But then it's like when you're like me and you've bought like 4 or 5 pairs of black-faced wet-lip adults and they stare at you constantly and do nothing. You're like, what the hell? And you find out that your easiest ones, the ones that are so chill and so mellow and so in tune with what's going on, are the ones that you raise up. It's like I could spend 7 years buying pairs of adults and failing, or I can spend 7 years raising up my own animals and go from there. So but I've had success with both. Like I have a pair of adult womas that I just bought as adults, and they laid eggs for me this year, even though they all bad. Still happened. But you know, it's one of those things where you can take the risk with some, but there's some that if you can buy babies, buy babies. So.
I agree. I try to tell her all the time about how snakes work, and you don't just buy adults and everything's good. Because we do that for corn snakes, but it's corn snakes.
Oh, well, corn snakes. I mean, listen, I'll buy an adult colubrid any day. I mean, that's fine. But for pythons, pythons and boas, it's like I feel like babies are the better way to go, especially with animals that haven't been produced regularly in the United States. It's much better just to start from scratch and raise it up. So, yeah. And I know it takes time and it sucks, but
you got time. We're going to be here forever.
Yeah, nothing's going anywhere.
I got time and don't got money. I like the money.
Yeah, that's the
what it
bad
is
part.
about.
Yeah, that's the shitty part is when like the other part is when you're raising up these animals from like babies all the way up, and somebody else who either went the route of just buying the adults like gets lucky. You're like, God damn it.
Right?
Or somebody else who got them like a year before you did breeds them and you're like, hurry up. Like, yeah, it happens. So you just kind of keep rolling with it.
My favorite was all the big people got into Bolin's this year, and they're all like, "We have locks. We're gonna have babies," and then everyone else is like, "Oh my god, I can't wait until we don't have babies." And I don't see any babies yet, so that's fun.
No one's had babies.
Not that I've seen eggs.
Viable eggs.
I mean, I think this one thing, if I ever were to breed Bolins, because I mean, like I'm rocking Ari's shirt right now, but if I was ever to breed Bolins, I'm pretty sure like I wouldn't need to post it on Facebook. People would just be able to hear me screaming that I got viable eggs off my front porch. So, but it's kind of one of those things where people try it, people get into it, and people think that they can kind of bring some fresh ideas to it, and more power to them. But I also know that there are some people out there that have been trying for so long, and like every year, I'm just like, God, I hope Keith McPeak gets a clutch of eggs, because I mean, he's one of the guys that really puts into it. I know Ari really wants them. It's there's a lot of kind of guys out there that do put a ton of work into the Bolins, and you just want to see them be successful.
Yeah, and I think that's why the other people were like a big slap in their face, because they said they were going to breed them, and that's the only reason why. It's like, fuck, man, there's so many people working so hard on it.
Yeah, and okay, clearly putting them in the garage was the thing that everybody was missing. There's always a guy at a reptile show that says that they know a guy who's bred Bolin's pythons. It's like, oh, my cousin bred them all the time. The secret is put them in a sweater box and keep them in your garage under your car. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, bullshit. So, and you just got to know that. You got to know that half the time people are talking bullshit. So you go with it.
So where do you go to breed things like white lips or Maclots or shit that's not commonly?
Sorry. Before we leave, well, we already kind of left it, but I had a last Hognose question. That may be a basic, but I hate Hognose, so I don't know anything about them. Between the different types of Hognose is I don't know if this is the word, venomity level.
Venomity. Yes, the venomity is very venomous.
I'll go with it. I love it.
Is the venomity level?
We're also talking across like genuses and stuff. They're not really one for one.
I'm gonna bust this out the next time we have like a rattlesnake expert on NPR. How's the venomity? And then I'm gonna be like,
and Eric's gonna be like, oh, fuck it.
Eric's gonna be like, what the hell have you been doing? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I would say it was funny because I'm like, I better watch with these Madagascan. I don't know how potent
you don't know their femininity.
You don't know their femininity.
I do not know it. I'll admit it, didn't know it. Bought this thing, and I'm like, I should really have checked this. But it was one of those things where I knew Easterns and I knew Westerns weren't dangerous. So before I even handled them, after I'd already bought them, I did a little reading of Riley's stuff, and I'm like, okay, won't die, good enough for me. So, and I also figured that because they're rear fanged, it would take a little bit to get. I would never be in contact with the fangs. That is a lie. They know how to get you back to those things so fast. It's like ingrained in their instincts. So I pulled them out on the car ride home, like just one of them. And I'm like, and it bit my finger.
While you're driving? I
wasn't driving. My friend was. I was in the passenger seat. We were totally safe.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it was stupid, but I really wanted to see it. Not the worst thing that happened in the car on the way back from Tinley, but so it bit me, and then it it swallowed me all the way back to the fangs, like as quick as possible. I'm like, well, I guess we're gonna see what happens here. Shit. So I put it away, and I'm like, well, it's getting itchy, and it's definitely getting puffy, and then like it went up, and then it went down. I'm like, all right, cool, done. And I've been bit by them one other time, and I'm like, same thing happened. It just kind of gets a little itchy, gets a little inflamed, and then goes away. And I'm like, all right, that's not worse than getting bit on the knuckles by a python, so whatever.
Yeah, I think people kind of downplay that a little bit because they're like, oh, they got to walk up to the rear fangs, but like they don't have rear fangs for no reason. I mean, they obviously fucking use them.
Yeah, exactly. And the way they open their mouth, it's like their rear fangs, but they're not like all the way down its throat. It can get you back there quickly. So it's, I think that's just one of the misnomers that people kind of do with the, oh, it's okay to have this. It's rear fanged. Well, no, it's still venomous or a little venomous. So definitely watch out and
Here's
don't
my
pull it out in
boom
the car.
snake.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So
then do you think it'd be, well, we only got 3 Eastern Westerns and sorry, Madagascars, but do you think the I can't even say that one.
Toxicity?
Yeah. Level across them is about the same, or
before we were talking about venomity, now we're getting on toxicity.
different things.
Oh shit! Okay, someone in the chat said toxicity, and I was like, oh, maybe that's a better word.
I think that's the correct thing to go by, but I don't know, and I think that would definitely be one of those things that it would depend on the climate that the animal is in the wild. I want to say that if it's full of stuff that moves pretty fast, I bet you the venom is more potent. If it's full of stuff that it can get to easily and slow, it's probably going to be less that. So I would say I don't know anything about Madagascar, but it's probably faster than the Western United States, but I don't know. So I would probably say it would go Eastern, Western Madagascar, but
I mean, there's something, just speaking about speed, something very not fast about Westerns. Like, they're terrible. Our Madagascar seem like they have more of a slender body shape. They may be a little bit more athletic.
They do, and they definitely are, because it almost seems like when you look at a Western, you can see the difference between like its head and its body. And with the Madagascar, it's kind of like just one long tube with a little snout on the end. So they definitely seem like they're built for a little bit more of a faster climate.
Yeah, so I don't know how these things eat in the wild as far as Western.
I'm going to get a whole book from Riley tomorrow, like telling me which ones are more potent and how fast they move. So I'm excited for this. So I'm kind of hoping he just sends that to me. So
there you go. That's good stuff to know. So do I have permission to move on?
Yes.
Okay. Now what the fuck is my question? So with things like these Madagascan hognose or white lips or maclots, who do you go out to and ask questions on how to keep and how to breed?
Ryan Young would be probably the first guy I would talk to, because he's bred and kept everything. Somebody else would be like Rob Stone, who has kept everything. He is a wealth of information when it comes to that kind of stuff, and will definitely tell me what article to read, what book to read, where to go with, and how to do it. And then the rest is that I've been sitting down just listening to different Python breeders for 6 years. I mean, NPR also has an archive, so every once in a while, if I got to dip back into that, to where we've had several people on who, throughout their mass collection of carpets, they have a pair of Timors. All right, cool. So I'm gonna listen to that show, and then I listen to the Timor part. I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff where knowledgeable people are out there. You just got to find them. And I've not met anybody who doesn't want to talk snakes. So who has them?
Well, I think once you get down to that level, there's only so many people who want to talk about Maclots or Timors that that person's probably pretty pumped. Like, finally, there's.
Oh my God, yes! It's like that's I mean, you talk to, and it's funny because you get them, and then you're like, these things are awesome. Why doesn't anybody else have these? So it's one of those things that you kind of hope the species would get a little bit more popular, but then also you kind of don't want it to get a little bit more popular, because then it's not for me. Like, I don't have anything here for me. Like I want you all to go away. Like, this is mine. I want it now. Like, ring pythons have become popular. Crap. I want ring pythons, and now they're all up there, and everybody's got them, and they're expensive. And I'm like, all right, I'll wait.
Well, to a certain extent, the more things you talk about and the things that you get into, the more people get into those things because they hear you over.
Yeah, so
I hate to tell you, but
shit,
you're fucking yourself here.
I should really stop talking about stuff. I should really just stop.
Because like I didn't give a shit about a giant hognose until right now.
And then now it's all about it.
No, we're not. No.
That seems like a possibility.
No, that's not a possibility. We're not.
It's fine. When are you guys moving to Pennsylvania?
Well, we was supposed to be July 1st. Now it's August.
All right. Well, they're not going anywhere, and you guys can always come over and check out my stuff, and then that'll just hammer that nail home. And it'll be like, aren't these cool? Yes.
Probably more likely to go Savu, Maclots.
Either one. They're all here, and they're not going anywhere. So yeah.
Well, we will be coming to collect our king snake that we got in the voucher.
If you have king snakes left.
Uh-oh. Don't crush my bubble, Owen.
You mean the Lavy Kelkings?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're cooking still. I got them. There's 9 eggs. I mean, one of them's gonna be there. I mean, one of them has to make it. So yeah.
All right, so we got a female from that. Just so you know,
I got you.
Sure this up right now.
You can't tell us female if they're just being born.
Well, I'm saying in the future.
So we're gonna wait.
And then
so we can sex it before we get it?
Well, every female that I get is a male. So if you could just give us a male, it probably wouldn't matter.
I will try to find, I will do my best to determine the sex of the king snakes. And if I find one that I believe is female, I will set it aside. And I will attempt to do everything I can to verify the sex of it before you get it. So we'll do everything we can. But,
thank you. I appreciate that. Others have been less thorough.
Yeah, I've been there too.
Then again, I've probably sold fucking females as males or males as females, whatever it is. But
I really try not to, and I try to pop everything the second it hatches because it's a lot easier that way. But you can't be 100% all the time. And the funniest thing is, I had kept back a few females of my own to breed for myself, and one would not. It's like this was her 3rd year going, and I'm like, no eggs. I'm like, holy shit, I kept a male. Like I kept the wrong thing for myself. I screwed myself. Oh my god! And then I came in one day and she was around a pile of eggs. I'm like, damn, I'm good. Yes. So and then I was like, I've done it correctly for once. So it can happen. You just got to kind of roll with it. But I try to keep everything. I try to sex everything as soon as I can, just for my knowledge and for customer knowledge.
Yeah, and it's smart to sex it before you buy another snake and then realize you have 2 males.
Oh, I bought a pair. Well, I had a female that I raised up for like 4 years, and like finally I'm gonna get that male, and then put them together.
That male. We got 2 males.
Yeah. That is how my carpet collection expanded beyond 2 snakes, because I got my first one and then I got a male for it, and then they both turned out to be boys. And I'm like, crap. And then I got a 3rd one, and that one turned out to be a boy. So I'm like, damn it. So then I just bought nothing but females for like 3 years. Because at that point I was like, this sucks. So I just had a bunch of them after that. But that's how it expanded to, I'm like, I'll get a pair. And then like 12 of them later, I'm like, good, I have females now. Yes. Wait, wasn't I only supposed to get like 2? Like, yeah, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. So how prevalent are you in doing shows and stuff like that?
I was more prevalent in the past, we'll say with that. I used to be able to do every Hamburg show for a year. And then I used to do the Oaks Reptile show as well as Tinley Park once a year. I think that's only recent though. Eric and I started doing that recently. But with Hamburg, if you miss a show, you lose your table.
Wow.
I keep screwing that up where I have to miss a show for like a wedding or something like that. And then I don't have my table. So the running gag of all the carpet breeders here is like, and Owen might have a table unless he screwed that up again. And they're like, yeah, he did. So, it's one of those things. I'll get back into Hamburg, and that's usually one where I like to haunt because, I'm set up behind Matt Minatola, so I can help him out with his table. He helps me out with my table. And it's always good to have a friend at the show, especially in the shows where either it's slow or it's freaking hot or, You know, everybody who comes up to talk to you says nothing nice, and just wants to. Oh, are you kidding? Oh my God, it was. And that's the thing is that apparently I'm quick with my responses when it comes to that kind of stuff. Where
apparently, like
there's a rumor out there. I don't really,
not sure.
I'm not. More research is needed, but they come over and they're like, so what's the bottom on this? And they point like at one of my towers and points at one of my carpets. And I'm like, the bottom is made of acrylic. And that is all. And like, and they're like, what? I'm like, no, dude, like, you don't, this isn't a used car lot. Come talk to me. Some say things. This isn't, you know, I'm not trying to do this crap. Like, just, you know, what is the bottom on this? The hell? Like, you know, and that's pretty much where it stems from. And I've had a few times where people ask to see an animal and they have it in their hand and then they pull the, listen, dude, I have $200 cash in my pocket right now for you. Sticker says 600. Yeah, but I got $200 cash. Well, congratulations. Give me back my snake. Like, and that's where it goes, where sometimes you just kind of get fed up with that kind of stuff. So,
well, I mean, for me, it's from $25 to $10. So you should feel lucky because
that's fine. I don't care.
I have some random stranger coming to my house off of Craigslist. He's like, I know you said $25, but I got 10. And I'm like,
there's
well,
the door. So
how would I be able to feed myself if I didn't have your $10?
$10. Thank you, sir. Like, no, and that's what kind of what I've said a few times with NPR is that, you know, you got the animals, you're the breeder, you've done all the work, you've done all this stuff. These are your animals and take pride in that. And don't let somebody push you around just because they think that you desperately need the money for this snake. And I've refused sales because it's just like, no, and the same thing goes around with shipping. Don't ever let somebody shove you around and tell you what to do about shipping your animals. They want your animal. And if they want your animal, they will do what you want to get your animal safely and securely. And that's it. I had some guy today that says, I'm going to text you over my credit card numbers. You're going to run it. And then you're going to put the snake on a plane tonight, right? I'm like, no. So, number one, I don't take credit cards over a phone or the internet.
That sounds super sketchy.
Yeah. And number two, dude, like, and my excuse is usually, oh, they just ate. I'm not sending it out tonight. Like, I do not feel comfortable about taking payments and then immediately sending snakes because that's where people get scammed. Credit cards stolen, PayPals get returned, and by then the snake is already on a plane and you can't get it back. So I usually like to do the whole pay me and then we'll set up shipping and we'll talk it out. Slow the process down. And that's where you can really find a bunch of scammers and stuff like that. I had some guy contact me through Facebook telling me he wanted to buy 3 snakes, totaling at about like $800, was going to send me his credit card information. I clicked on his Facebook page. It just had a profile picture and nothing else. Googled the dude's name, found the real guy living in Texas, not Chicago like this guy was, all this other stuff. And I'm like, no. So it's like, just a lot of times you just got to slow the process down.
Do you use Ship Your Reptiles?
Yes, I do. I've been doing this since back in the day when you had to get approval from FedEx to ship snakes, and you actually had to do this by sending them a test box with a little rubber snake in it, and then they would.
I've never even heard of that.
It was fan-fucking-tastic. You had to send them a box with a snake in it, and they would send you back a form that said that you did it correctly, and then they would stamp your FedEx number, and then you were allowed to ship reptiles through FedEx. Now, no FedEx place at that time wanted to take the snakes, and they would do everything in their power to not take the snakes. So it was constantly a shouting match, like at my local FedEx place, to take the package that I have approval for to ship to you guys. Please just do it. So, and then
they were afraid of killing it, or afraid of it like killing them.
I was afraid of them, of it killing them, and it was constantly. I've had to walk snakes to a truck. I've been on the phone with FedEx, who had a snake in a truck in Arizona that they were refusing to deliver because nobody wanted to touch it.
Oh,
like Ship Your Reptiles and other companies like it are a godsend because they deal with all this crap. And if you don't do this, exactly, they remove you from the process, and it's so much easier. So yes, I use Ship Your Reptiles completely. But with them and the avoid all the old FedEx stuff. I've had snakes shipped to me with the tag that they were fragile computer parts because people couldn't do it.
I've had some weird.
So they just like lie. So people
they
pick
lie.
it up.
Was they used to call them mixed nuts or something like that, or some sort of food thing. This way it would be taken care of while it was en route. But like, I think I was in college and I had a snake shipped to me from Texas. And it didn't make the time. It didn't arrive. And of course I had it shipped out on a Thursday to arrive on a Friday. Amateur mistake. Like, dumb. So of course it goes to a FedEx sorting facility because it's labeled as nothing but fragile computer parts. And like, oh, box on a shelf. And I had to drive around New Jersey to go get it. And I got there right before they shut down, right before they closed, because I went to one place. They told me it was on a truck already headed to this other place. I had to drive there and get it. And I managed to grab her. And my girlfriend at the time was pissed because, like, we were supposed to do other things, but like, no, we have to save the baby snake in the box. And oh yeah, did not go well. So, but yeah, I much prefer it now where things are all out in the open and safer. So yeah.
And FedEx will still fuck it up at some point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
you do it enough.
Of course, delays happen, and they don't really, they kick the box for all I'm concerned with. So just pack them in tight, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I feel like Shipper Reptiles is the best. Wait, I can hear myself.
I know.
Sorry.
I blamed Owen before. I don't know if it's
There's
really
a
him.
little bit.
If I lean away from my microphone, like, is my NPR microphone too good? Like, did Eric make me buy? And maybe.
It only happens every so often. That was weird. Sorry.
You're good.
I don't know. I just feel like the rates sometimes on Ship Your Reptiles are a little bit absurd.
You don't have a base of where we're at, so it's like it was a little high, I feel, for the last year.
Like one time it was like $80 to ship, like something crazy.
Yeah, just a few states over.
Yeah.
When I was starting, it was like $10 to ship to the Eastern Seaboard for me from Pennsylvania. Like $30-$40 for Midwest, and then like $50 to California. Now it's like $50 to most of the Eastern Seaboard, unless it's like the next state over. $60 to the Midwest, and it's almost $80-$90 out to California.
See?
And I think that's just indicative of, like, the time, like prices are going up, as well as, companies like FedEx might agree to it. Doesn't mean they're happy about it, so they may try to
a little tax,
sweeten the deal,
jump the price up a little bit to make it better for them, worth it. Also, so some people are like, screw that, I'm not going to do it, and then they don't. Cool, and we don't have to do it. So it's one of those things where it sucks. You kind of got to deal with it. And I've had a few people who want to negotiate shipping, which I'm like, hey, I can mess with the price on the snake all you want, but I can't really talk about shipping. That's not me. That's somebody else. So unless you want to call Ship Your Reptiles, sorry. So, but I do try to work with everybody. But yeah, shipping sucks sometimes.
And I did used to do flat shipping, like $50 flat shipping, like a couple years ago, but not anymore.
Well, it just sucks. Like, I understand times go on, stuff gets more expensive, but our corn sticks are still 20.
I remember when gum was a nickel. Goddamn it!
That's exactly.
Like, ours are still the same price, so it's like it's so hard to sell a $25 snake when someone has to pay $80 for shipping.
Yeah, we can't ship anything under $100, and then people are pissed off.
You guys are slowly transitioning into the grumpy reptile people. It shows where I am now, where I'm like, in my day, ring pythons were everywhere. It's like, it's that kind of stuff. It's like you'll get there where it's like, you kind of get used to it or you move past it. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's part of the hobby where I think people might even start sticking around and dealing with more local breeders just to avoid shipping rates, which is fine. All right, whatever.
Well, when you live in Pennsylvania, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, come on. There's plenty of shows in PA. But I mean, and then it's why I think some of the other bigger shows like Daytona, Tinley Park, Sacramento, they're so pumped up is because people go out there for the show and then like, well, since I'm here, might as well pick up the snake I've always been wanting because now I don't have to ship it. I'll drive it back with me or, whatever. So they do that kind of stuff where kind of make the hold off on those big payments until it's right in front of them.
Mm-hmm. So were you involved as heavily in the reptile community beforehand, like before NPR like that, or was
No.
that kind of your way to get out there?
I was the weird kid that hung out at Jason Balin's table and went, "Gee, Mr. Balin, I really like your tigers." And he's like, "That's like that was pretty much it." Like, that was I had some interactions, but NPR is really what boosted me into the reptile community as well as Rogue. So, I mean, and like I was saying before the show, it's like without NPR, I probably would be one of the most private people in the world. Like I wouldn't let it. I'd
Is
let
that
it
why you're so good with people?
No, yeah, I know, right?
It's weird.
I know. I try my best, but the thing is that without NPR, I'd probably just be one of those guys that breeds the snakes, and you got to like track them down because you doesn't have Facebook, or you have to find them like at the show in the corner.
It's just not happening.
Exactly. So it would be like that, but I wouldn't trade anything for NPR. Like doing that has been fantastic and been probably one of the most fun things ever. And then especially when it led to things like Carpetfest and other things like that. I think now they got 5 Carpetfest in the United States, with the first one international starting next year in Britain. So that's just one of those things you're just going to want to. That's probably one of the things I'm most proud of with that. So even though I am private, I definitely would not trade NPR for anything.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. I just keep on this person. That's a person for the fucking Craigslist ad that I just mentioned. It's a business call, damn it.
Damn it.
He's about to tell him that we're recording a podcast.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Go fuck himself until like a half hour from now. What are you doing? This has been like the most interrupted show of all time, and I blame Melissa.
Sounds about right. That's I would figure that would be my show. I mean, like, Eric's went smooth as shit. Yeah,
So what shows, I mean, when you were getting into this, I mean, you were probably going to Hamburg and all that. And like, how did you first get into what you're into now besides Chris? Trying to figure out how to word this.
What drew me into the pythons besides Chris and stuff like that? Well, in college, I worked at the small animal lab on campus, taking care of the animals they use for the teaching parts and stuff like that. And they had a box of like a case of old magazines or something like that like had gone to the library and then been brought over to there. And it was filled with nothing but old Reptiles magazines and a bunch of other crazy magazines and brochures and crap. So going through like because I worked there in the summer, you'd finish up all your work at like noon, but you had to stay there till at least 2 o'clock. So we'd all just be hanging out trying to figure something out, or we'd be scrubbing once part of the lab. So on days where we were all just hanging out, I'd always be thumbing through a Reptiles magazine, just checking it out. And Will Leary did an article about breeding carpet pythons. And then there were several articles about diamond pythons. And there was a whole big interview with Steve Irwin, and he's talking about Australian species and stuff like that. So it just kind of led to I kind of really want this thing. I kind of want to really check this thing out. These things look really cool. These things look amazing. And I ended up stealing a few of those Reptiles magazines to bring back to my dorm room. And like, I read them until they were falling apart, and ended up just kind of cutting out pictures. And it's funny because with the Will Leary article, he talked about tiger jags back before tiger jags were even a thing. I think he did a breeding loan with Jason to bring about the first couple, because Jason had the tigers, Will had the jags, and that was it. So I had this picture of this tiger jag I just like taped on my computer in college, and it would just kind of like just be there. And I kind of always like just check it out. Really kind of one day I'll have a snake this cool and stuff like that. So that really is kind of what hammered it home for me. After I got the first carpet python, it was just like, I really want to just keep these things, breed these things, and I want to make something just like that one day. So probably one of the projects that I've kept around for the longest time has been my tiger jag project, just because I love it. I love a good tiger jag. So I mean, it's just cool looking. So Yeah.
And you haven't made a super jag yet?
I have not made a super jag because it'd be white and dead. But and I always thought of the breeding jag to jag pointless because you're wasting half your clutch or part of your clutch. And there's so many other cool shit you could throw to a jag to make non-dead white babies. So, that's just what I do. So I try to avoid it as best I can. There was a year, I think 2 years ago, where I'm like, shit, all my boys are jags. I'm like, I need non-jag boys. So I had to run out and trade with Howard to get a tiger, which nothing is ever easy with Mr. Redding. So, but yeah.
But it's funny. It's always funny.
The first time I met Howard, I went to the show in Havre de Grace, and I didn't know anybody there, and I was talking to Jason Balin. And this guy comes walking up to me on my side. And I kind of turn and I look at him, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Howard. Would you like a balloon?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Would you like a balloon?" And I'm like, he goes, "That's a yes." And he ties a balloon to my wrist, and he goes, "That's so it won't float away." And then he walks away like some sort of villain from a Stephen King movie. I'm like, who the hell was that? And Jason's like, "That's Howard." And I'm like, what the? He was giving balloons away at his table to get people to talk to him and stuff like that. So he's just walking around handing out balloons because it was a slow day. And that was the first interaction with Howard. So, he's been a trip ever since. So
that's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it started off probably 6 years ago. Carpet pythons now, since there's all these cool morphs, man, they're very popular and people know about them. But what's the shift that you've seen in the hobby since when you started the show to now?
When the thing is, we started the show after the big kind of balloon of carpet pythons had started, because when I was getting my carpet pythons, we had tigers, tri-stripes, jags, and that was it at a coastal. And then there was no morphs in jungles, no morph in IJ. So after I started with my carpet python, zebra came into jungle, and granite showed up in IJ. So now these things may have been around, but they were not in the public eye. So all that stuff started coming to being, it stopped moving away from really the line breeding of carpet pythons to the morph breeding of carpet pythons. So there was the tiger line, and then there were certain tri-stripe lines, but those all kind of started falling by the wayside and then everything just became a tiger with stripes. That's it. It's just a tiger. And then everything was being crossed into jags. So a lot of the really kind of pinpointed line breeding was kind of just mixed in with jags. All the IJ stuff was mixed in with jags. Michael Pennell stuff was mixed into tiger or jag. And then there were very few of those things kind of going. So there was definitely a lot of that where the shift came into the producing of the morphs.
They're just breeding the wobble out. That's it.
Oh yeah, any day now it'll be done. Any day now it'll be over.
But now, I mean, you barely see jags around.
Mm-hmm.
Not nearly as much as you did.
It's a shift. It's a flow. I mean, everybody has jags. Everybody has jags now that are mixed with 3 other things. So why do I need a normal jag? It's one of the things where I think now we're starting to get back more into the line breeding of wild type, because you want to start making really, really good base model and then bringing the morph into that, line breeding your coastals to get insane colors, and then crossing the jag or the axanthic into it and really getting the colors to pop. Or people taking even just straight up axanthics and just trying to get the really nice colored ones out. And especially with the introduction of the localities and certain things like Rockhampton and Brisbane. So it's these things shift around, they move around. It's never going to be one way forever. So.
And that kind of flows into something that you said earlier. You're like, oh, yeah, this is really cool. And then eventually things cool down as far as, it would have been really cool to have Darwins, and then there's Darwin albinos, and then there's fucking all this other shit.
I'm sorry.
But things just get,
Eric.
Is it Eric? Yeah, here. Eric. I don't need you. It's my time.
No, but it was a compliment.
Oh, really? And then no, stay.
I'm sorry.
Because
totally
it
threw
seems
you
like
off.
we've been neglecting all these species, or we haven't been able to get them, and then they show up, and then we like them, and then we don't like them like 2 years later.
Well, it's market saturation. I mean, ring pythons at a certain point, they couldn't give them away. Everybody had them. Everybody had a pair, and everybody's pairs were breeding. Cool, tons of them. So they couldn't give them away, and then only a choice few people kept them, and then everybody else got rid of theirs. Males died, or females died, or pairs got split, and something happened until eventually you didn't have any, or barely any, and then the price got back up. The same thing went with monkey-tailed skinks. They were everywhere until they became classified as you couldn't import them. Then they were rare as hell. You know, people who had bought them for like $100 were selling them for $1,300. Mm-hmm. Now you can import them again. So now they're slowly going back down. So these things always change like that. And I think we had Nick, it was one of the first episodes we ever had Nick on. And he started talking about how there were certain python species that were here that now have to be re-imported because we let the base animals die out. And now we have to bring them back into the country to breed them again, to get more of them again. So it's one of those things you kind of want to try to hopefully prevent. I mean,
that's why Owen doesn't have Dunn's pythons.
That's why Owen will get Dunn's pythons soon. He better.
Because someone else, I guess, is doing that legwork to get him in.
I know. I'm waiting for. I don't
know. A guy up there.
I know a guy in the other side of the country who got a bunch of tattoos and writes books. Who could possibly help me out with that later on, but we'll wait for him. So
when you get wild caught animals into your collection, what's your keeping strategy for them?
Keep them away from my stuff.
How long do you do? Do you do preventative?
Yes.
Yeah.
All of it.
Go into all that.
Yes to everything. What I do is, I definitely have a quarantine procedure when it comes with any animal. It is usually about 30 to 60 days.
Okay.
And coming from friends or anything else, it just has to be that way. So for wild caught stuff, I will almost push it to 90 days if I have to.
Oh, wow.
And that's a quarantine in a different part of my house because I only got one. And
darn.
I know, right? Otherwise, I have my quarantine house.
You need a quarantine house. Come on.
I gotta sell more pythons. But
Eric would have a quarantine house.
Soon. Wait, you just wait. Soon. But what I would do is I would usually put them in my office, and they're on a strict quarantine thing where it's they're the last snakes I service in the day, or I save them for a different day than when I service my animals downstairs. Done. And the preventative is obviously the mite treatment once they come in, whether that be Nix or ivermectin, and then kind of assess the first couple poops for anything that might have to treat internal. Usually people who are bringing in snakes are pretty good about treating for internal parasites, but you still might have to use some flagell or something like that to clear them out. Happens. If they're eating and they're shedding and everything looks good after 90 days, I'll think about bringing them back downstairs and then kind of, dick around for a week maybe before I actually do it. But usually it's 90 days is at least the minimum before I bring them downstairs. And it's a clock. So if a new animal enters quarantine, everybody in quarantine starts a 90-day clock again. So, because now there's something brand new here.
Whoa.
Yep. So it's just the way to think about it, where people kind of tend to get burned a little bit is if they have a snake in quarantine, it clears quarantine, and right before they take it out of quarantine, they get a new snake into quarantine. And then now technically everybody in that room is now potentially contaminated.
I didn't think about that.
That's why everything's got to stop there. So as long as everything's good, they go downstairs and they join it. Where people tend to get into trouble is breeding season. They really want to get eggs. They really want to get breeding, and they really want to do breed loans. And they get somebody to send them a snake, and they don't think, and they take it downstairs and they throw it in the cage with the female. And it's even with the best of intentions, you may not know what's going on with your snake. I mean, you may not intentionally have sent anybody a sick snake or a mite-ridden snake or anything like that, but you don't know. And then you'll feel horrible if that person ends up having a problem. So I would always suggest at least a 30-day quarantine for everything.
And do you keep everything? You were saying bring it downstairs. Do you keep everything together once it's out of quarantine?
Yep. I have one room where everybody is, and then I have a side room where my freezer and my incubator is, and I have one rack set up in there too. So usually all the pythons and most of the colubrids are in the central room, and then I have some of the larger colubrids off into the side room.
Is that room to expand, or is that you're really supposed to keep it to that one room?
Well, I try to keep it to one room, but there are like reptiles on every level of the house. So like that got messed up. So because there is right now currently the room full of snakes downstairs. Can't miss it. It's a room full of snakes. There's the side room. Then there is a giant tank in my living room full of mangrove monitors. And then there are 4 cages full of Nile monitors set up in my office and a beaded lizard.
So what is your setup with the whole monitor thing? Because I've heard you talk about it, but
one of my best friends is a guy named by the name of Andrew Lewellen, and Andrew breeds a lot of black-throat monitors as well as other monitor species. And he and I kind of worked out this thing of like, if you have overflow, dude, I'll hang on to it, and vice versa. So, and he sent me over some baby Niles, and they were working out with me. And then his mangroves got too big for their cage, and I have this big living room tank. So I'm like, hey, cool, they can hang out here for a bit. And then they never left. Like, they're just still here. So eventually I'll kick them out. But I got eggs from the mangroves this year. So I'm apparently doing that right. You know, go figure. And then the beaded was something I just wanted to play around with, and he's cool. I don't trust him, and he's kind of scary, but you know, thinking about, oh yeah, that's a venomous animal. So it's, you kind of got to remind yourself, but the monitors are really just here until Andrew decides he wants to take them back or get rid of them. So I just kind of mess around with them, which is, it's okay. It's kind of a nice little thing. You get to play with lizards and not have to worry about their upkeep or their expenses because he covers all that, but I get to play and feed lizards. So yeah.
Okay, so that's not bad because it's like snakes and monitors. It's not a 1-for-1 there. Obviously, one is much more difficult to keep, and then also has worse consequences. But what were you gonna say?
Nothing.
Oh, you looked like you were gonna say something.
Oh no, I had something in my eye.
Oh wow, cool.
Well, the other thing is that I buy a bag of like 10 rats. I can feed 10 snakes with that. He can feed 1 monitor with that bag of rats if it's a really, really bad day. So it's kind of one of those things.
Oh, I thought of one.
Okay.
You talked about breeding loans earlier. Is that something you're into? You kind of are like, oh, not worth it.
The thing is that, and you kind of know that you've somewhat made it as a snake breeder, or at least in popularity or word of mouth, when some random person at a reptile show who you've never met offers to send you his prized animal for, like, just take it, you breed it, and then send me the babies. It's like, well, who are you? And why would I do that? It's like, no, dude. And, you know, that's happened before. So with breed loans, I have done them in the past. I've had some stuff kind of go wrong in the past with breed loans, whether animals die or animals get sick or no breeding happens or this, that, and the other thing, or the animal you sent me is a boy, what the hell, dude, and that kind of stuff. So I really just don't do them anymore. I have I'd much rather have if I'm going to breed an animal, it needs to be mine. So, and that's it. I mean,
not even with Eric?
Not even with Eric. Well, and that's not true. He and I swapped Brettles this year. But, damn it, I broke my own rule. No, but even when it comes with Eric, it's animals that anything would come through breed loan have to come through quarantine. So if we're going to do a breed loan, you better give it to me
way in advance.
Half a year
way in advance. Way in advance. And by then it's, yeah, I mean, so I don't really do breed loans. Eric is probably the only exception when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Damn it.
We need some male olive in one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying.
Oh, well,
We
you
need
know.
some olive help.
Look at it this way. If I can get one of them to breed, I'll get rid of the other one. I just need one of them to do something.
Maybe ours is the one, Owen.
I don't know.
It's a compatibility issue, you know?
Oh, and that's some bullshit too. That they got me on some white lip stuff too. It's like, oh, compatibility's a thing. All right, just make sure they don't kill each other. That's all you really need. It's So
We'll bring our Texas flavor to
Pennsylvania bland olive. Yeah, I mean, come on.
He's gotta add some seasoning in there.
That's it. She just needs some. He needs some spice in his life. He can't deal with her. Come on, look at her. She looks exactly like me. Dude, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, one project that I know is really close to your heart, you could say, rough scales. Where are you?
Is that a fact that I actually have one tattooed like right here on my body?
No, it's creepier than I thought.
Okay, it's even weird now. So
yeah.
Perfect. Now we're getting to the good part of the show. The roughies were something that I never thought I'd like actually own. Like you saw them in a picture in a book, and you're like, it's a weird little bumpy python. And I forget where we actually had. I forget what the show where we actually talked about him. I think it may have actually been right around the time when Nick was putting out the complete carpet python. And I wanted one, and I just really kind of wanted to get into them. And some guy out in California offered me a pair of boys. And I'm like, oh, holy shit. Like, and he's like, I'll trade you 3 carpet pythons for these 2 rough scales. And I'm like, I don't think I could like type. I think I was just like hitting the keyboard as fast as I can to try to type yes. And I got the 2 male roughies, my first 2. And I was just happy as a clam to have them. And I'm like, I'll figure out the breeding later. It's like, I don't need girls. It's like, you do. So I kind of just kept growing them up, and I got them pretty big. I got them close to adult size. And then I couldn't find girls for the life of me. I just kept finding people who were not either willing to sell lone females, or there were no large girls out there. So I ended up sending my one boy to Nick, because Nick had a pair and his boy wasn't doing shit. So every single freaking rough scale boy that Nick has ever produced out of his stuff is from my male. And I'm like, that's a kick in the shorts right there. Like, but it's awesome for him. Like, that's great. And I love seeing
you get at least a little kickback.
No, I didn't know. I didn't want it. And Nick had the same thing I did with breed loans. It was, it was a thing. So, those are Nick's animals, and Nick did all the freaking legwork and all that stuff. So totally all him. But
you're
it was just
supposed to say, "Here, I'll give you this male for much less," and then you give me a female. When
actually, he gave me some Xanax stuff, so that's where the basis of all my Xanax crap happened. So I really can't complain. And I mean, it's fun watching people that I know buy roughies from Nick, knowing that Romulus is their father. So it's really kind of cool to have that thing going, and I love that. And then now I finally have. I had the older male. I still had that one male, and he ended up getting a mouth infection, which could not kick, and he ended up dying, which was like devastating.
Is that just a large teeth kind of?
I think so. I don't know. He didn't. I vets all the time, and way more money than I probably ever should have spent on a single snake. But but he ended up passing, and then we ended up. Now I have a trio of roughies, because I ended up getting a pair last year or 2 years ago from Dave D, as well as a female, I think a year before. So I'm inching towards getting them to breed. And Eric keeps telling me, I think the one of the running gags of the show is that I'll never do maternal incubation. But somebody showed me once that when rough scales do maternal incubation, you can see the imprint of their scales on the eggs, because it's a rough, like keeled scale. And I kind of want to see that. So I don't know if part of me would be like torn between take the eggs, she doesn't know what she's doing and they're valuable, to, but you won't get the cool imprint on the shell, Owen. So I don't know.
I'm sure you only have to leave them there for like 5 days.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm
like. Oh, cool.
You've had them for a week. Give me. It's like, that's how it's probably going to end up going. So, but I'm hopefully you'll see how they go in the next year or so.
What draws you to those? And then obviously you don't keep chondros and stuff like that. So what's the draw?
I have kept chondros, and they annoyed me. But the draw for the roughies is their eyes. They have these gorgeous kind of bluish gray eyes, and it offsets on their entire body with the cold kind of brown and cream colored. So they can definitely, when you take a nice picture of them, you can see the color that comes through with them. Also, that they have this threat display that you don't see in anything else when they like take their bottom jaw and just flail it out. And I've only ever seen it like twice. So, it was when I got my first pair, the first two boy rough scales. They came during a winter storm with like those glove heat packs that you have in the box.
Excellent.
I mean, and again, this is why I will never do another shipping company other than Ship Your Reptiles. I called Robin and told him what was going. And I think they must have sent like calls and emails to everybody at FedEx trying to find this package and get it to like a FedEx facility, and I'll go get it and stuff like that. But it did end up getting delivered to me, and they were like freezing cold. I thought both animals were dead when I opened the box, and I pulled out the one, and he flailed out his jaw and tried to kill me. And I'm like, okay, you're good. Oh, thank God you're alive. It's like, that kind of stuff. And that's the only other time I've seen it, but they're just so cool when it comes to that, and the feel of them, and the fact that it looks just like this angry kind of pissed off chondro. So.
Mm-hmm. What were you saying?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Secrets. We were just looking at pictures of rough scales, but are there any other, I mean, obviously there's things that have stayed true throughout the years of shit that you keep. And it's like, you're always into white lips, probably maclots, as well as rough scales and stuff like that. Out of those big projects, which one do you want to see breed first? Like, which one would you be most psyched about breeding?
It's hard because as much as I've many carpets that I've produced, I've only ever produced coastals and jungles. I mean, I couldn't even get my IJs to breed, and that's the running gag of NPR too. I had to send them to Jason Banlin. I know, there's a lot of crap. 6 years worth of this stuff. So I never actually got the other python species that I was working with to ever breed. That's why my womas this year was like, oh, cool, these are all excited. And then they're all like duds. So I would probably be the most excited for the rough scales. But I think the biggest payoff, or the longest payoff, would be like the maclots. I mean, that would be awesome to see. So,
I mean, I would say, just by judging by everyone else, I mean, your most probable pairing would probably be the rough scales, right?
Yeah, I mean, the roughies are like, if they breed, you guys might not even see the babies. Like, they just might all be mine. So, like, yeah, oh, good, more. It's like that might be one of the things where I start redoing the room to make more room for rough scales and start selling off all this stuff. So, it would definitely be probably them.
Dallas in the chat asked if you name all your snakes or use the standard XX1, 2, 3, 4 labeling method. Jesus
Christ. I name every single one of them. Every single one of them, except for babies that are for sale. So even my holdbacks as tiny ones get names. So, and I do that partially for myself because I want to have a name to scream in it when it's pissing me off, or trying to like bite me. And then it's also for family tree stuff. If somebody contacts me and says, I have a baby from this one, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that looks like one of hers, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, and the other thing is that because I went to school in an agricultural school, and I messed around and, with all the people that were doing the horse stuff. With horses, they have a theme for the year, and they name all the babies that theme for the year, or they take names of parents and play the kids' names off of the parents. So I started kind of doing that kind of stuff. It makes it a lot easier because when you have 93 of them currently, that's not including all the crap that I've had over the years. It's hard to try to not repeat names. So it's really just kind of a play off of that kind of stuff. So my first couple, I had Talon and Trinity, bred them together and got my baby boy Echo, and his name was Echo because he looked like his father. And then Echo produced Soundwave, who Soundwave is what's kicking around right now. He's downstairs. And Echo also produced Maya, or Emma, and all this other kind of shit. So it's easy ways to trace this stuff. So when Dr. Ben came on and said that he can like plot family trees through like snake sheds and genes, like I don't know if he knows what he did by telling me that I could send him sheds, because I'm just going to send him like the whole family tree at some point and be like, map it, like, you know, tell me what's happening, like this kind of stuff. So it's the part, that's the part I really enjoy, actually, is the family tree stuff. So.
And how do you name then the babies?
I have
that
either there's a book or a movie that I was watching. Like a lot of times, like you can tell when I was reading Game of Thrones books because you just see all the characters appear downstairs. So, and the same thing goes with a bunch of other things like that. But the other thing is I'll also text friends and be like, I have a snake, needs a name. And they'll throw a bunch of names at me and be like, I like it. And then done. And then especially if I have something for a theme with this kind of stuff where it's like the Madagascan hogs, I'm like, your theme is alcohol. Give me 3, go. So I got whiskey, I got vodka, and I got Riesling downstairs and, you know, a bunch of other shit. So yeah, it's just the way it goes. It's just texting random people and be like, name this snake for me, please. So yeah.
And now the baby's for sale.
Doesn't mean
so no, but how do you label them when they're for sale? Do you just put them up individually, or do you give them their own?
They get their own code, and partially that is played off of their parents' names. So the code, the example is the jungles I just hatched were from Punch and Chase. So mom's initial goes first, PC, and then 2018 dash male or female, and then the number that came out of the egg. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Straightforward.
It's an easy way to plot it.
I have a question off topic. Do you have a question on topic?
Keep on. We're not on the tracks anymore.
There's no tracks. Never
that
tracks.
Went off in the first hour for sure.
It goes off every episode, but I try to preface my questions if you have one, but it never stays linear. With NPR, when did you like acknowledge that y'all were number 1?
When everyone else fell out. I mean,
yeah, when everyone else left, it was like, which, you know, I talked about this before the show. These things are, these things come in waves. You know, people try podcasts, people try YouTube channels, stuff like that, and people stop, people go away, people decide not to do it anymore, or some people stick around, and then there's usually like a wave of less and less people, and there's a ton of people all of a sudden, and then there's less and less and less. So with NPR, we just kept it consistent and kept going because, you know, Eric's a slave driver. Hi, buddy. But, you know, it's like that was the whole thing. We just hammered home with consistency because, you know, watch my message feed on a Wednesday when NPR had one of those technical difficulties when we couldn't air a show. It lights up. Where's NPR? What happened? I had nothing to listen to on my ride home. Okay. All right. Sorry. We're sorry. So we just kept going with it. So with the acknowledgement of it being number 1, I think it was when just when Carpet Fest started exploding. Because if we weren't popular, Carpet Fest would have never gotten off the ground. Or no one was listening, Carpet Fest would have never gotten off the ground. And if no one was listening or no one was getting excited about the stuff we were saying, there wouldn't be 5 of them with the 6th one overseas. Like it would never have happened. So,
And I had heard on the latest Nick Mutton episode, Eric apparently told him that he was going to make a Morelia only podcast. And I think Nick told him that it was never going to happen.
Dumb idea. Yeah. There was numerous people who told us we were stupid. Like the first time I went up to Nerd, which is the New England Reptile something. I forget the whole
probably
thing.
Distributors, but
probably
we'll go with something.
I don't know. The first time I went up to Nerd, they were all very nice and very cool. And they were like, these are the guys from NPR. And they're like, who the hell would listen to a podcast about nothing but Morelia pythons? And I'm like, well, and we'd already been doing it for 3 years at that point. I'm like, apparently a few people, like, you know, it's like, I got it. We know Reptile Radio was already taken. We're sorry. So we just kind of keep rolling.
You would think that out of all the things, there'd be a fucking ball python podcast or something that sticks around because those are people would actually listen. But it's like we like weird stuff and we stick around.
It depends on the hosts. I mean, and people have multiple reasons for stepping away from podcasts and stuff like that, whether it be time, financial, life. It's one of those things. Eric and I have just been fortunate enough to keep rolling with it. We haven't had anything that would take us away from NPR pop up, but and it's just one of those things where podcasts come, podcasts go. Sometimes they come back, and sometimes they come back with a freaking vengeance, and then they're running around. I mean, Corrales Radio went away for a little bit, and now they're running around again. So sometimes you just step away a little bit. But.
Well, there's a few things that are certain, and it's going to be me and Eric. Whoever dies first, that's when the podcast will end.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be
stop it, damn it.
It'll be certain. I think I've said it numerous times that NPR will stop when one of us is dead, and the leading theory is that
if it's you first, then Eric will probably keep on going.
Oh yeah, of course it'll be me. He'll be in Australia getting jumping on a crocodile, and I'll fall off a cliff or something over here. I'll be like, didn't see that coming. So it's just how it'll go.
It's how'd you guys start out? Because we kind of have a certain path because you guys talk to weird people that we want to talk to. Because
it's not how you start out. That's not what he's asking. He's asking
these distinct tastes.
How did you get? I guess.
I mean, how do you get people on when they didn't previously want to be on a podcast or know what the hell a podcast was, especially 6 years ago?
What are your persuasion methods?
Eric is so good at that kind of crap. I mean, he doesn't let me talk to people. He's already, I'm waiting for the phone call later. It's like, you did good. But he's very good at talking to people. And we also don't we don't try to make anybody do something they're uncomfortable with. So we just ask. It's just straight up, you want to come on the podcast? What's a podcast? Kind of like a radio show. Radio show? Yeah. Just got to talk to us on the phone. Totally fine. What are you going to talk about? Snake stuff. Anything off limits? Whatever you tell us is off limits is off limits. Then it's done. Some people say yes. Some people say no. And there are numerous people that people are like, why haven't you had this person on? Well, because we asked them and they said no. And we're not going to bug the guy. That's it. And then if they say no and then they approach us later with, hey, I listened to a couple of your episodes, maybe it's something I want to do. Cool. Awesome. Fine. We kind of try to take NPR as the route of no pressure. If don't worry about it. Don't try to make a home run of a show. Don't come on and be like, it's going to be the best show ever, or I'm going to I'm going to put everybody on blast. Just come talk to us about snakes. The biggest thing that we have is people like, I don't know if I can talk for 2 hours. You'll be fine. You
can do it.
You can. Trust us. It's going to be okay. Just come on and start. Guarantee you're going to be like, wait, it's over already. And everybody, that's how it usually goes.
Yeah, I think we learned that early. Don't convince people to be on. People who don't want to talk or don't want to be, if they're
I'm bad
nervous
at that.
about it.
Because I'm like, I don't know.
It's such not a big deal.
Right. That's the hard.
Because we're just hanging out.
It's so not a big deal. We're not, we're not super strict. We literally have had 3 beers each right now. That's the hard part. It's I know how relaxed it is, and I'm
just hang out with
I'm bad at
why don't you want to hang out?
Letting it go when I know it could be a good thing.
Exactly. And then there's also the we've had shows where we thought that this guest was going to be freaking incredible. And then we get let down because they either don't want to talk about these things, which is why we really wanted them to come on, or that they're not really just a really talkative person, or they get nervous, and that's totally fine. So, we have some bad episodes, and there are other times where Eric says, oh, this guy's coming on. I'm like, what the hell are we going to talk to this guy about? And then 2 hours into the recording time, I'm laughing so hard I can't breathe, and it's one of my favorite shows of all time. So you just kind of got to roll with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's kind of a thing where it's don't meet your heroes and they'll let you down. But one that was really amazing was Eugene Bissett. So that was a classic NPR episode for anyone who has never heard that. And if you want to hear Eugene Bissett call Owen, was it
unproven male breeder? Because I don't have any kids. So, because he's like, do you guys got kids? I'm like, no. He goes, wow, you're an unproven male breeder. I'm like, he's not wrong. I'm like, it's kind of horrible, but Jesus, it's like, and that was the funniest thing. There have been a few. Rob is really good at finding the clips where I totally embarrassed the hell out of myself and everybody around me. But I think we had one guest on, and I forget who it is, who actually assumed and got me confused with somebody. And he goes, well, Owen, you just had a baby, right? And I'm like, a human baby? And like my voice hit some pitch that I have never hit it before. And I'm like, oh, good. That's recorded forever. That's fan-freaking-tastic. Like, and it's that kind of stuff. So episodes can turn into freaking Insta classics with this kind of stuff. So that's why I kind of like having the review show kind of every October when it's like the anniversary of NPR. We go back through like 1 year worth of the show because we can do that now. We've been doing this for goddamn forever. And Rob pulls clips of it. Now, I've totally forgotten half the dumb shit I've said over the years, and Rob brings it all right back for me right here. So it's something to enjoy. And Eugene was probably one of my favorites. And then hanging out at ICAST with all those guys was incredible and that kind of stuff. So I actually met him in person there first, and then I've seen him at a few things since. But he's a funny guy.
Yeah, I wish I was around during ICAST and like meeting Rico and Eugene and all the people that were there.
Rico was really cool. I only met him in person once, and that was ICAST. And we had set up the table, and I actually brought like a bunch of white lips and stuff. I brought everything down to just show and try to do stuff and all this other crap. And they had a best in show judging this kind of stuff. And I had a patternless Wamina scrub with me. And I was getting ready to put that one into the best in show. And Rico comes walking around, and he's doing some judging just kind of on solo, just kind of walking around. And he and I started talking, and he said, well, which one are you doing for the best in show? I'm like, oh, this, the patternless Wamina. No. He takes a pen and he just crosses it out. And he goes, pick another one. I'm like, well, and he points at, I had a Moluccan scrub. And he points at her, and he goes, that one. I'm like, all right. So Moluccan scrub. That's what we're judging. She wins best in show. And I'm like, holy shit. So it's like, I guess I should have listened to him the whole freaking time. So, and he was very cool about that kind of stuff. Yeah, we just won best in show with that. And then that one animal, I got Scott Borden to play with it at ICAST, and now he's all about Moluccan scrubs and white lips and crap like that. So, I can blame Hazel for him. So, yeah, just kind of funny when that kind of stuff works out.
It's funny also how you can completely hate an animal, get so much out of it, and then also pass on the love for it to all these other people. And then not have them anymore,
Well, that's the thing is, and it's kind of why my Python purchasing has kind of died down. I know where they all are, and I know they're with people that I know, so I know where to get them. It's like I don't need to run out and buy these, ridden imports off of a table, because if Scott ever gets his, Moluccans to breed, I'm just going to show up at his house. Like, hey, buddy, it's going to be one of those things. So, and that's the biggest problem of being friends with Eric. It's like, do you want these, Owen? Nah, Eric's got them. If he breeds them, I'll just grab them from him at some point.
If it's a Python, you don't need any more.
Never, yeah. I'm good now. It's like, if I ever have the need for an African rock python, I know where to go. But, it just kind of, it's that thing where it's like, as long as you have friends that, have them, if I ever feel the need and if they ever get lucky and have babies, I can talk to them.
Absolutely.
Backtracking a little bit, because that's my specialty. Darren Watson in the chat asked, do you expect customers to keep the names once you've sold it? And are you offended if they change the name?
I hunt them down and I take the snake back immediately. No, if I ever sell a snake with a name attached to it, I try not to include the name in the ads or anything like that. And, they just, it's theirs now. They can call it whatever you want. It's not like it doesn't answer to it. So,
we're gonna get that king snake. We're gonna name it Bubbles. We're gonna make a sweater and a top hat, and then have a good time. Post all over Instagram. Made by Rogue Reptiles. Everyone,
that just hurts.
Look
that
at
just
Bubbles.
Hurts badly. It hurts badly. It just because my thing about top hats on Hognose has been well documented in Patreon.
About that.
Oh God, just clothes on snakes is almost as bad as my hatred for everything about the other thing. No, we're not talking about it.
Okay. Second question. I'll divert.
Good.
Total selfish question. Do you think it's possible to have 2 #1 podcasts?
The fuck kind of question is that?
I told you.
No, we will destroy you. Of course. Well, it's thing is like, of course. And here's the thing: is that we constantly tell people seem to think that we're not the only game in town. We know that, and we don't want to be. You know, we prefer it if there were tons of shows out there that had a ton of information for everybody to get at. That's what the whole point of NPR was, and we don't ever want to knock anything down or get anybody, you know, not wanting to go out there and give a stab at a podcast or a video podcast or a video journal or anything else. Please God, do it. You know, there's plenty of room in the hobby for things that need to be addressed, need to be talked about, need to be brought to the forefront. The latest episode we were talking about how the word codom is not a term that should be used, and it should be incomplete dominance. And to be honest, that's a thing that probably could have been avoided if there were tons of podcasts and stuff like that run around when all that words were being assigned to morphs. Now it's so ingrained, we're going to just be wrong. And
it sucks.
Well, there were podcasts,
people,
but they were ball python podcasts, which still adopt codom. So leave that as
but like smart people have told us. We did one like a year ago. Smart people keep telling us we're wrong.
Well,
why don't we want to listen
Travis
to the
Wyman
smart
or
people?
when geneticists say you're wrong, you fucking adopt it immediately.
I know it's hard to go backwards and to take it off, but it's not like it's like printed on some plaque or shit. It's just stuff that people are using. So change your language.
Yeah.
And don't use codom.
So how about those exanthics, Owen?
I'm still confused of what the hell I'm going to do with that, because I'm probably going to, because the problem is I have a clutch of caramel hets. I don't know if that's the right, but they're going to hatch soon. So I
super duper caramel
exanic het for hippopotamus. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is they're going to hatch. I'm going to have a lengthy conversation with Ben. I'm going to have a lengthy conversation with Nick. And I might even send an email to Warren Booth just to be like, tell me what I should tell people these things are before I list them. That's all I want to do. Because then when I list it and I have somebody come and contact me, I want to make sure that I'm giving them the correct information. And that's it. That's all I want. I don't want anybody feeling upset or angry later on down the road that I sold them something I shouldn't. I want to be able that everything's good. So that's probably my biggest fear. And you can try to change the language as much as you want. You can change it to incomplete dominance, but you're going to be explaining yourself at reptile shows to everybody who asks what it is. So if you don't mind doing that, go ahead. But I can see where there's going to be some pushback.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's like, then why don't you just cave to saying head exanthic? Just because it's visual, and you could say it's an incomplete dominant gene, but you still call it head exanthic, which is confusing in its own right. And just, it's a mess unless everyone adopts it.
Yes, and it's also kind of a mess because I'm not just doing straight exanic. I have some caramel stuff in there as well. So how does that change what I'm looking at? So there's a lot of stuff. Don't be surprised that they're not the first things you see listed on my page. They might appear at like age 6 months when everything else appears at like age 2 months. So yeah.
And there's something where it's like, there's a visual het, people call it, or a visual marker. Well, that just kind of seems codom, and then the full, the homozygous would just be the super form, or what we call the super form, at least. So
exactly. And it's funny because there were, for the longest time, it's probably one of the big things that people kept checking for. Everybody talks about I'm going to breed the wobble out of a jag. the thing that people were looking for a lot when I was getting started was the marker for granite in IJ. And they were like, oh, there are several spots on this snake's belly. That must be a marker for granite. Well, why don't you breed it and figure it out? No granites. Oh, crap. So it's like there was a lot of that stuff going. And for a little bit, there actually were people selling animals that they believed were marked as granite. There was actually, I think, I remember a thread on Morelia pythons where somebody said that he had figured out the marker for granite, was selling IJ markers, but refused to tell anybody what the marker was. But you can give him like $100 or $500 and he'll send you a baby IJ. It's like, okay. So it's one of those things where we just got to work it out. And once we work out all the kinks, we'll have a general language that everyone can understand and we'll be able to sell the animals.
Right. It's just, you would think your platform is as good as any to say like, hey guys, this is it, motherfuckers. Like, we're sticking with this. Or like even a group somewhere, you could be like, all right, guys, but no one wants to agree. I don't know why.
The reptile community is huge. And it's daunting sometimes when you think about that. They're like, I'm a big player in this community, but that community is a small little drop in the big place. And a lot of the language when it comes to the genetics has kind of fluid through a bunch of different species, some of it where it doesn't really apply, but we kind of force it because that's how everybody understands. So it might be very hard to do that kind of stuff and to change the way of thinking, the way of talking. I mean, I already slip up a million times. I can't get to call them Papuan carpet pythons. I mean, that was hard. Like, it's just, I can't. It's just, I'm like, oh, IJ. Why? Because it's always been an IJ. And that's why you see more with when nomenclature changes. Everybody just refers to it as the old Latin or the old common name, and just takes a while for it to come through.
Yeah. And I mean, there's something that I wanted to say before, but I kind of forgot.
You didn't have to say that.
Well, I could have just said it, but I'm backtracking. So I want to let you know that I'm traveling back in time.
You guys' honesty is awesome.
Like, yeah.
We preface a lot of our statements. We probably don't need to.
This doesn't make sense, but so just the more people don't even know what a podcast is. You're saying how big the reptile community is, but people don't even know what a podcast is. People don't even think we're a podcast, I think, because we're like on a YouTube channel, so they don't know like you can download it and shit like that.
Right.
But it's like the more people that know that podcasts are, like, there's not too many podcasts for them to listen to. They can listen to us Tuesday morning and you guys Wednesday morning. Or like, you know, like they can listen to both of us in a week.
Yeah, guys, come on.
Well, no, I'm just saying that like it's not a competition because like a person who listens to podcasts will listen to whatever they can get. I'll listen to whatever podcast I can get, but all I can get is you guys. Well, so it's like,
yeah, I mean,
there's others.
I would have.
There's other, but there's a. I feel like a lot of the other ones are very, very specialized. You know?
No, like, even I'll listen to a gecko. I'll listen to whatever. I don't care.
I think a lot of them. I think in almost we did it. I think we kind of were like a perfect storm of almost things where we were kind of specialized with Morelia pythons, but then all the other podcasts kind of dropped off, or, you know, some of them were doing other things. So we started branching out. And at the first point, it was just like, oh, here's a weird little episode for you guys on this species. And then we just kept going. So it kind of is kind of pushed past it. I mean, I almost think when you pigeonhole yourself into one species, you might run out of topics. So obviously I would say that there's always more people out there to interview, more people to talk about crazy stuff and fun stuff, and always more people who are willing to talk about other things. So there's always going to be a podcast out there. So I would recommend that some of those other podcasts that might be a little, I don't know, like specialized, kind of branch out a little bit.
I agree.
And that would be fine. And then also my thing is that I listen to podcasts when I'm cleaning my snakes, but I don't like listening to reptile podcasts, especially myself. I would no, dear God, I do not like that. So that ain't happening. But my biggest thing is my biggest thing is that when I don't have a podcast to listen to, I'm pissed off because it's like I got nothing to do. I gotta, do that. So I'll actually discover podcasts and just like, I don't know, like shotgun, like just listen to them constantly, and then I get mad when I catch up finally.
It's called binge watching or
binge listening. Kids these days. But anyway, God. But I get mad when I catch up because now I'm like, oh crap, I got to wait like bi-weekly for a podcast, and that gets annoying. So there's definitely room for other podcasts because I think people would always want to have something to listen to on their commute, in their snake room, whatever. So.
And we always get people saying like, "Hey, man, I want to start a podcast." I'm sure you guys get it
Eric
a lot more than we do.
Yeah, I get none. Eric gets them all. So, but yeah, and what I would say is just give it a shot. I mean, nobody told Eric or me what to do. It was just do it. And I think the only piece of advice we got was be consistent. And from that, we just kept with it.
God damn it, we try to be consistent. It's our guest's fault that keep us from being consistent. I swear every time I tell people like, oh, we're having this person on next week.
Don't say that. Say it's your guest. Well,
and that's happened before too, where, you know, Eric and I will announce that we're going to have this guest on, and then they can't make it, and they call us and they're like, oh, we're going to have to reschedule, which is fine because we're always open to rescheduling. And then it's a me and Eric show, and we just talk at each other like this and stuff like that. So, you know, I think there was like maybe one season we ended up having like 2 or 3 of those like in a row. We're like, oh crap! Like, please God, let the person come next week. Like, you know, it was one of those. So, and they're, as long as they're few and far between with those kinds of weird things. Again, it's just the consistency of it's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday, like time for NPR when we take the 2 weeks off between Christmas and New Year's. Tuesday at 9 o'clock, I feel weird. So it's like I'm not sitting down and, you know, calling Eric like, what the hell's going on? So yeah, consistency.
Yeah, I mean, you get used to it after a certain time, and it's like when you're not there doing it, or like even with us is a little bit more awkward because we have the same collection and it's mostly me who cares for the animals. So we don't have as much to talk about. But I remember like when I always listen to you guys, some of my favorite episodes were just you and Eric talking.
Yeah. Those are probably the ones that have the most laid back feel because it's just me talking to my friend. And those probably are some of my favorite ones because then it's just, there's no prep work. There's no, I need to read the outline. I need to, you know, check out the dude's website that we're going to go talk to. You know, it's just like, oh, I'm just going to sign on, click on, hi, Eric. So it's kind of that stuff. And if you can kind of take that attitude of just being laid back and put it to every show, kind of just breeze right through it. All of a sudden 6 years happen. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like we just talk about what we like and what we want to talk about anyway. And then also it just expands your horizon so much to where like we didn't know anyone fucking, you know, 8 months ago, you know, we didn't know a quarter of the people that we know just from asking them randomly like, hey, you don't know us, but you want to talk to us for 2 hours?
Yeah.
And people say yes for some reason. I still don't get it.
It's weird, and it's one of the things that like you don't expect it, and then even with events like Carpet Fest, you start knowing more and more people. You start talking to more and more people, and you start realizing that, you know, this guy lives one town over, but never had any interactions with him. And now he's coming to Carpet Fest, or, you know, this guy has these animals. Oh shit, I've been looking for those. It's like, it's that kind of stuff where you build the community just by rubbing elbows, talking with people. And you used to be able to do that at shows a lot, but it's a little hard. So any of those kind of outside things like a podcast or Carpet Fest really help kind of build bridges and kind of connect people with this kind of stuff.
Now, you asked me when I was on NPR, who were some of my favorite guests or episodes? Do you have any on your end that we didn't mention before?
My favorite guests, I mean, it's always cool to talk to Nick. I like to live vicariously through Ari when he talks to us about like being on a mountain, like dying in a hut. And I'm like, whoa, dude.
I wish I had diarrhea.
I wish I was dying in the middle of a thing. Yeah, it's like, you know, all that kind of fun stuff, doing the Python research. Then also I geek out on the scientific stuff when Dr. Ben calls with his research. But I also enjoyed the fun shows, like just having Rob Stone on and talking about old times that we, all the old shit that Eric and I have said, that kind of stuff. So there are too many to name at this point. It's like, that's my problem, is I can't zero in on one show that I'm like, that one was awesome, because I'm like, oh wait, but that one was cool too. So it's a bunch of
I'm sure it all blends together when
dear God.
6 years.
It's all just one big mass of a conversation. So
Gustavo asked in the chat, what happened to part 2 of the YouTube video of your place?
Part 2 is coming. Eric is been extremely busy because he's hosting Carpet Fest. So he has part 2, or he's editing part 2, or he's doing something with part 2. But he did say he was going to toss that out there soon. But part 2 definitely has a few more of my pythons on it, like the rough scales, as well as a lot of my colubrid stuff. So he will put that out there at some point.
Okay.
That's it, man.
Well,
we did it. We're over time.
There's stuff in the Brandon in the chat was like, "Oh, we're going over 2 hours. Is Melissa gonna let it go to 3 hours?" Like, you're welcome.
We looked at the score of the hockey game because the Stanley Cup's on, and the Capitals are winning fucking like 3-0.
God damn it!
If there's anything I don't like, it's the fucking Capitals.
Yeah, I was really kind of hoping Fleury would have done something really and just killed him.
You just can't be in the East and me like you. It's just not. The Vegas Knights, they haven't had time for us to hate them, so let's go for that. They've only been here a year.
Yeah, and I think it would be hilarious to watch a team that has only been here a year win the Stanley Cup.
That would be cool.
A lot of my friends are Flyers fans, and I really enjoy rubbing that in their face. So yeah.
And I'd like Ovechkin getting so close and just losing every time.
That's another thing too. Yeah.
Wait, are you not a Flyers fan?
I'm a Penguins fan.
Wow. Well, that's convenient, isn't it? Huh?
No, because I live near Philadelphia. Yeah, I have a lot of friends that don't like me. Steelers, Pirates, Penguins. So.
Well, I'm a Devils fan. I'll be living in Philly soon,
so
that won't go over real well.
That's sad, really. I mean, I take pity on you for that. I mean, it's one of those things.
Yeah, I just forget sports sometimes because I'm a Jets fan also. So.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. We don't. Hey, I wish he hadn't said that. I give him so much shit. That is the stupidest thing to be a fan
for anyone
of.
that hates me for being a Jets fan. Why? Like they
don't
exactly.
What have they done to you in this century?
I don't hate you. I think it's dumb.
I think it's time to leave that sinking ship, but that's you. I mean, that's whatever.
He's holding out, I think, for when Gary
Gary
V buys them and morphs it into something anyone gives a shit about. But the Jet, come on, the Jet. Who likes the Jets? Who likes the Jets?
Yeah, whatever, man.
Damn, man.
On that
note, I wish the Flyers had won.
Mean the Penguins? Or
no, the Flyers, because then
it would.
No,
you were rooting for the Penguins. You're getting confused. You were rooting for the Penguins just because they're in Pennsylvania. So you're like, that'd be cool if the Eagles won.
The Penguins were
someone else in Pennsylvania won.
Penguins are Pittsburgh.
The Penguins are Pittsburgh. So I was rooting for the Flyers.
Yeah,
but the Flyers got kicked out early.
Or
they didn't make it. They
got kicked out early.
I was rooting for the Flyers so that Philadelphia could have this NFL win and NHL win. Stop trying to take my shit from me.
And Villanova won the NCAA, so they would have had 3.
See, how cool would that have been?
I have too many friends that are Philly fans, and it would have ruined. My brother would have just called me and been screaming for at least an hour because of all the shit that I put him through over the years, which he called me Super Bowl night and just screamed at me for 10 minutes. So, no, they don't need any more wins. I'm done with that.
But that never happens. That's all.
I know, and it doesn't have to.
And plus, it's either the least humble city of all the cities, I think, to ever win a Super Bowl. The only city to climb on every light post and flip over every car in sight.
No, we did that in New Orleans when we won.
That was a challenge.
I think every city does that when they win the Super Bowl. Come on.
Unless you've won it multiple times.
Unless you're used to it.
Yeah, I mean, Patriots are we're going to stay up till 11:30 tonight, and then we'll go to bed.
Fuck the Patriots.
No one likes that.
Don't get me started. Tom Brady kissing his son, motherfucker, weirdo.
Well,
So now we call this show derailed.
yeah. I think this is official.
Now it's gone. It is totally off.
If anyone's still listening,
it's over.
Do you have any parting words?
I do not. What I would say is please listen to Morelia Python Radio every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I had to say that, or I would be hurt. And then the other thing is that obviously you can go to MoreliaPythonRadio.com, check out all the stuff we got going on there, and there are links to all 5 Carpet Fests. So please, if you are in any of the areas and wish to attend any Carpet Fest, contact the people who are running them. They would love to have you. Northeast Carpet Fest is this Saturday, June 9th at Eric's house in Warminster, Pennsylvania. My website is rogue-reptiles.com. You can also look at facebook.com and check out Rogue. See, now I'm just regurgitating what I say at the end.
It's sounding exactly the same. Keep on going.
It's like a baby sea turtle coming back to a nest. It just is natural now. Come on. You can go to check out facebook.com. Give us a like, and that's all we have for you tonight on Morelia Python Radio. No, shit.
You can catch us tomorrow.
Yeah, catch us tomorrow, and I'll say the same thing again. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for having me on and being on this side of it. It's very rarely I get to do this part, and it was cool.
I hope you enjoyed 1 hour of very precise, aimed conversation. Another hour and a half of
bullet points of
just random shit.
Of course, that's most of my Tuesday night is just talking about some stuff and then completely about other things. So yeah.
Well, you may get deja vu tomorrow.
Oh.
Run down our shit.
No, I mean I will, but Eric's probably gonna ask me how this went, so that'll probably take up a good 10 minutes of NPR. So yeah.
There you go. By the way, well, never mind.
Sick.
Sorry.
Good job.
If you want to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Port City Pythons. Our website is Our website is Port City Pythons.
Owen is so much better than you.
I have 6 years worth of practice. Come on.
Come on.
Our website is portcitypythons.com.
Get it together. He's watching.
We should be having babies within a month and a half on our website. We will post all of that.
Dude, babies are due in 2 weeks.
Shit. Never mind. Not a month and a half.
Yeah.
I thought it was July.
There's a clutch due 6/18 or 6/14 and 2 due on 6/23, and then another one due by the end of July, and then a few more in August. So
you got eggs hatching on my birthday.
Oh,
when's your
we're gonna
birthday?
name him Owen.
June 14th.
Oh shit! Y'all should have put Carpet Fest on your birthday.
No, I refuse that. I don't want all those monsters around me when I turn ages. No, are you kidding me? It's bad enough as is. I mean, I love you guys, all you listeners out there, and all these other things. Yeah,
we're gonna name Owen's clutch Owen themed. It's gonna be Python Regius and
Sasquatch,
Morph and Sasquatch and
damn it.
Hippopotamus.
Okay.
Hippopotamus. Yeah,
we're failing at this outro. Thank you guys for listening. Check us out next week. I'm not telling you who's coming on
for another episode.
That's all you gotta do.
Thank you, Owen, so much for being on.
Totally.
Everyone go to Northeast Carpet Fest if you're up there.
Boom.
Bye, guys.
Later.